Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a short moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Panieri?
Present.
Councilmember Gambaro?
Here.
Councilmember Miller?
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan?
Here.
And Mayor Norris is absent.
Thank you. We'll now move forward with public participation. As usual, you have 3 minutes at the podium. Please be respectful in your comments, no derogatory or defamatory remarks. And with that, we'll go ahead and take our first speaker, please.
My name is Marion Petruzzi. I've been an advocate for our section residents 14 years. Since the inception of Ralph Carter Park, families occupied the fields for various activities. Also, it was not uncommon to see people on the fields practicing their golf swing, things of that nature. There was never a need for field lights. At nightfall, all would exit the fields. Everything changed when the city leaders allowed sporting events to take over this park weekday evenings and Saturdays. As you all know, the 65 high-powered lights have been torturing the several hundred residents living adjacent to the park. Since this occurred, I have been at several meetings with James Hurst in attendance. Each time someone asks Mr. Hurst who is in charge of operating the field lights, he provides an incomprehensible, varied response. At this year's April 8 council meeting, Mr. Hurst stated the field lights are operated by someone of the city. There was no switch at the park to turn the lights on and off. Since daylight savings, there has been a shift. Weekday evenings, someone has been turning the field lights on at varied times, but always when the sun is still shining. However, the lights turn off exactly the same time every evening, in the dark evening hours, with the lights still illuminating our entire neighborhood. As explanation, last Monday, April 15th, there was only 25 people playing sports on the fields. The following nights, the same sport, but Tuesday night, 16 people. Wednesday night, 14 people. Thursday night, 10 people. Last night, 26 people. All field lights have been on every evening for these small amounts of people. Again, there is no need for field lights to be on in a neighborhood park. Common sense, if persons want to use the fields to play sports, they need to adjust their schedule to be at the park in the daylight hours. At nightfall, simply exit the fields. What is so difficult to understand? Why does the city continue to allow 65 costly, high-powered field lights to be on weekday evenings?
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Petruzzi.
Denise Henry, P section. I actually wrote this down today because I didn't want to miss any point. So first of all, I want to make it clear that I do not personally know the mayor or council members, meeting him for the first time at the swearing-in meeting. I do not personally or professionally know any city employees except Brittany Kershaw after the November meeting because Mayor Norris advised me to speak to her if I have issues navigating Palm Coast Connect as I permanently deleted my Facebook account. I do not personally know any resident who attends these meetings, nor do I know any past council or mayor because for 7 years I was basically sequestered except for church and the grocery store. However, after 2 hip surgeries, I could be active again, so my attendance at council meetings began to occur regularly with the meeting in November. Also, I do not personally know any of the applicants for District 3 seat on the council, even if it seemed like I personally knew Ms. Stevens at the last council meeting. But I can assure you, I will now get to know her even more than these meetings. Last Tuesday, 3 of you lost my and others' respect and trust. Once trust is broken, it is nearly impossible to earn it back. The residents of Palm Coast voted you into office to represent them and by your platforms. I felt the council would finally listen to the residents, but I see the honeymoon is over. I took over 2 hours of my time to listen to each of the applicants. When residents like myself spoke last Tuesday for Ms. Stevens and some even against Mr. Sullivan, no disrespect to Mr. Sullivan, congratulations, because not one resident that I recall stood up to speak for you nor Mr. Ferguson. Yet council members paid no heed and voted who the council members wanted. Last time I looked at the city's organizational chart, the citizens of Palm Coast are positioned at the top, and the mayor, council, and city employees are underneath us. Yet council members voted for who they wanted. We voted out the old in the last election, and in 2 years, we will do the same unless you can earn back our trust. But it will be a long 2 years, and in one case, 4 years, for all of us. Putting it mildly, I am disappointed.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Henry. Mr. Stone.
Good morning. Bruce Stone, Seminary Woods area. On Seminary Woods, there always used to be an arrow on the second entrance on Sesame Boulevard, which we go down to get to our house. That arrow and sign on the second entrance has been removed. Does anyone know why?
We can get an answer for you after the meeting, Mr. Stone.
Excuse me, Teresa?
We can get an answer for you after the meeting,
Yeah,
off the top of our head, but go ahead and finish your public comment.
yeah, it's gone. It's gone. And, I requested this the last time. When you turn on Sesame Boulevard, there's 2 entrances. The first one has an arrow to get in and make the turn. There's no second arrow on the second entrance. And everyone in the area is concerned about the new complex. When they had a builder come into Palm Harbor, he's going to build a massive complex. Everyone was concerned about the traffic. And the second, on the right-hand side, you figured the average house has 2 to 3 cars. You're going to put another 2,000 cars on the street with no lights, nothing. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. My wife works for the state. When we lived on the other side of Cimarron, it used to take her an hour to get downtown. Now she takes 1 and she's at work in 15, 20 minutes. But the traffic of trying to have all those cars come out of that complex, it's going to be a very dangerous scenario. That's now. I hope you decide to put a paint to make the left-hand lane where you can get in to make that turn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Any other public comment?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everyone smile. It's not the end of the world.
Good morning, Mr.
Things
Ferguson.
always change. Last week was an interesting week for me. But first I want to congratulate you, Mr. Sullivan. They got it right, okay? But there were 13 other people that put their hat in the ring, and I take my hat off to them as well. But what happened during the process last week was not the proper process. And I don't know who to point this to, but it's been done in the past where you're selecting people and you give your vote and you weight it. You put 1, 2, or 3 next to the person's name. You didn't do that in our case. That was foolish. That made the process convoluted. So maybe you'll learn from that, because maybe there'll be another appointment before too long. Who knows? But my reason for coming here today was to point out the fact, not only that the process that Mr. Sullivan and I endured, and Miss Stevens, who isn't here today, endured unfortunately. So my point today is to say that when you're appointing somebody, put your name next to your vote. Publicly make it public. Don't hide behind your vote. Because when you did the city manager thing, we all knew how you voted. You put a 1, 2, and 3 down, didn't you? And you said, these are my people. And then you selected the finalists on that basis. But you didn't do it in this case. Why? Don't know. But I highly suggest you do that in the future. Because, Ms. Pontieri, you wouldn't nominate a person who wasn't even a finalist as breaking a stalemate. That really crushed my spirit. So think about that. He didn't earn that right. In fact, if you go back to the primary, he didn't even, the person who won the primary got more votes than either of the other 2 players. I was waiting for you to nominate him. So that was foolish, and it hurt me. Anyway, lastly, I want to leave on a positive note. I don't know what the future is for Palm Coast, but I know a lot of people care about it. And I know that this lady here has bent over backwards to keep the ship in the right direction. And you should respect her. And you should respect everybody who's trying to do their job. I don't know that this is proper to address it without the mayor here. But I was going to take him down today. I was going to tell him, why isn't a Grand Haven resident eligible to represent District 3? Do you know they pay $2.5 million to the city of Palm Coast? You know that for the last 8 years, Mr. Kloufus was from Grand Haven? I don't know whether you thought he was doing a good job or not, but Mr. Sullivan, hopefully you'll bring some stability, some judgment, and some passion to get some economic development and change this city. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Ferguson.
Good morning, Ed Fuller. Honorable Vice Mayor, Honorable Councilman. By the way, congratulations, Honorable Dave Sullivan. I'd like to start out on a very tragic note, I guess, but one that we all had to endure. I'd like to take time out to remember the victims of this Florida State shooting and their families. A tragedy that goes beyond the pale of imagination and man's inhumanity to man. I can't imagine what those family members feel today, or those students, but I can only tell you, it has to stop and has to start with us today. Violence and hatred and vitriol, it doesn't solve a thing, and violence never does. So please keep the family in your prayers and thoughts. On a really super note, that extravaganza that the city put on, unbelievable. That egg hunt, it's incredible. To see those kids' smiles, that's what it's all about. That's why people come to Palm Coast. It's about families having fun, a joint event. And everyone who organized that job, what a super, super event. You know, that's the heart of Palm Coast, the little ones. They're our future. And everyone took a lot of care to make sure that that happened, and happened in an orderly and constructive manner. And smiles on their faces, okay, how much is that worth in a child? It's everything. God brought children to bring us peace, love, and happiness. And I'll tell you what, all you have to do is go over there during that extravaganza. Another event that I'd certainly like to talk about is the splash pad. I went over there with my grandsons and we went to play basketball. At my age, I guess it's the challenge of a lifetime. I went over there. Now my grandsons, they're pretty active. And I asked these 2 gentlemen who are very athletic, I said, look, do you mind if we shoot some baskets over there? We didn't reserve a court, we didn't have anything. And they looked at me, and I guess maybe in astonishment, and said, you know what? You're welcome. You're welcome to shoot. That's the kind of citizens we have here. Those are the young men that we grow up here in Palm Coast. Those are the people we want to emulate, and those are the people I'm thankful for. And I'll tell you what, my grandsons looked at me and said, you know, grandfather, I miss Palm Coast. And I thank those gentlemen wholeheartedly. And last but not least, I had a meeting over there at Southern Recreational Center, and a young woman over there by the name of Dee opened the meeting room for us, and immediately she said, there's something wrong with these tables over here. She went and got a spray bottle, sprayed all the tables, not that they were unkempt or anything like that, but she did that. I can't thank Dee enough for that, and thank her for professional, and thank all the city employees for all you do, and thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you, have a great day.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Fuller. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, how are you? My name is Wilfredo Lleras, okay? I've been in Palm Coast a short time, 26 years, okay? I just moved in, all right? If I go over, please forgive me. This is very important what I got to say. Please, all due respect, okay? Now, okay. By the way, congratulations on your elections. We voted for you when you needed our help. Now we need your help. Myself and others concerned residents have been presenting for the past 8 years with zero results. I'll get to the point. I represent we the people, residents, general public, senior citizens of Palm Coast. At one time, there were 3 pools: Frida Zamba, Fitness One, Belter, Swimming Racket Club. Now there's 0. And I'll tell you why there's 0. I explained that. The conditions and operations, maintenance and general hours are a total disaster. I have previously suggested a bus ride to go to see Ormond Beach YMCA. However, 0 takers. Zippo, nothing. Seeing is believing. It's like the Taj Mahal over there. Ormond Beach, the hours that they are open, incredible. 5 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, Monday to Thursday. Saturday and Sunday, again, from 7 to 4, from 11 to 4. They only have 25 swimming lanes. Shame on you. Also, the water temperature, 84 degrees. You can go there in the middle of the snow. In the winter here, when it snows, you can still swim. Please understand, the average home in Flagler County is between $350,000 to $450,000. This means that daddy has to work 2 jobs. Mama's got to work an additional job. The children are in some type of daycare without attention of the parents. Saturday, daddy has to do the chores around the house, cut the grass, paint the garage door, etc. As parents, they would love to spend some quality time with the children swimming, maybe Saturday afternoon or Sunday. This time will be remembered as lasting memories as adolescents. Please guess what? The pool in Palm Coast are closed Saturday afternoon and Sunday. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Lastly, the physical and medical advantages of swimming will enhance longevity, increase your cognitive abilities, etc., etc. I needed a pacemaker. I needed a defibrillator. 0, nothing. Why? It's your fault. It's your fault. Because now I go to the other pool and swim. Thank you very much for your undivided attention. God bless you, and God bless Palm Coast. Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you for your comments, sir.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma'am.
My name is Regine Vernier, and I reside in Palm Coast. For
Ma'am,
the
if you
last
could,
15
ma'am,
years.
could you, thank you. That's so much better. Thank you.
I voted for you twice, I met the mayor, because I believe you will help us to improve the mess the previous mayor left us with. They have built home left and right without thinking of where the water will come and the electricity. The growth is having a negative effect in the city and have reduced the quality of life. And it will continue to decline if we don't stop it. Years ago, Palm Coast was built with hard-working people and brought their money to Palm Coast to have a better life to live in. This all changed the last 5 years. The growth is out of control. I have seen so many seniors taking jobs in order to pay their bill, to keep their home they work so hard for. I came from that generation who are not afraid to work hard to have a better life. I know that this will not be easy for you, Mayor, but we are supporting you and we are behind you. Don't let any investor trying to destroy our land and kill the beautiful animals that live among us. Last Continue to make effort to build the YMCA for the benefit of all. Let's not forget those who love to swim to keep healthier, especially the senior of Palm Coast. How they are thinking of building several buildings. Now they are thinking of building several buildings for sport complex on Route 1 Northwest of Palm Coast. I am pretty sure you are aware of that. Let's all think positive. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, ma'am. Anybody else for public comment? With that, we'll bring it back to the dais. City Manager, can we look into the arrow that Mr. Stone brought up, or do you have an answer for that?
Yes, I believe there's never been an arrow at the second entrance at Seminole Woods. I've been driving that way for the last 7 years. There's never been an arrow there, but if you recall, there was scheduled for a turning lane presentation by Fong, and it is an item for discussion as we evaluate your 10-year CIP and as well as your strategic action plan priorities for road repair and road safety. So you have that at your pleasure.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment or response to public comment?
No, ma'am, that was the only direct citizen one. Other things were just complimentary.
Okay, thank you.
Lights.
Councilman Miller?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, it was
lights at
mentioned
Ralph
that the
Carter-
lights come on at different times. I'm assuming they're related to sunset?
The lights at Ralph Carter Park. There is a permit out there for Mad Dogs Flag Football. They are practicing Monday through Thursday with their games scheduled elsewhere in Flagler County. So there's an active permit for that facility.
Anything else, Councilman? Any comment on this side?
I'll defer. No, just, I appreciate the comments about me. This is really my first meeting, and I plan to be here and take a look at things, and I am very encouraged. I love Palm Coast, and we're going to make it better, and if there are problems, we'll fix them. But in the meantime, I'm very glad to be here, and I hope most of you are too.
Thank you.
I got those comments too. Madam Vice Mayor, we've got a lot of important issues to discuss today regarding the future of our city. However, to me, nothing is more important than immediately addressing the findings received yesterday regarding the investigation that this council directed to review the mayor's actions. In short, the accusations that led to the investigation have been sustained and are extremely concerning, especially the substantiated finding of clear malfeasance. I wish the mayor was here today so I can tell him myself. I'm truly disappointed with his behavior, his wild accusations against this council, members of our city staff, members of our community without any supporting facts to his claims. An example of this is the Flagler Buzz interview, where he gave all of us the middle finger, the State of the City address, and many other situations. His insistence on continuing to bring up past resolved issues in a negative fashion versus looking towards the future in a collaborative manner with this council and our residents is not anyone's definition of executive or strategic leadership. In just a very short amount of time in office, the mayor has managed to divide this council, divide our community, and tarnish the image of this great city. And as such, and I know this is a workshop, but I move that this council immediately issue a vote of no confidence and a vote of censure for the reasons that I have laid out. And I also move that this council immediately send a letter to Governor DeSantis requesting the mayor's removal from office for clear malfeasance. I ask that this letter include signature blocks of those on this council that choose to vote in favor of this motion.
Thank you, Councilman Gambaro. I would ask that you bring this back up during council comment at the end. And the only reason is I could understand if the mayor were here and this were something you would maybe want to address ahead of the meeting. Since he's not presiding over this meeting, I think it can wait until the end. If you don't mind, let's focus on the business of the city today first. And then I think it's better addressed at the end if you don't mind. Is that okay with you?
Happy to introduce the motions at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And City Attorney, if we could address Mr. Ferguson's concern about the ballot, because I understand your concerns, Mr. Ferguson, with regards to the ballots. Ever since I've been on this council, appointments even to your board, to PLDRB, have been done via ballots that our names were never on. It was never brought up as an issue previously. We had always done it that way. I know that we did, I don't remember if it was Councilman Gambaro's appointment differently. Okay, so we did the same. Okay, so I know we did one appointment a little bit differently, and I don't remember which one that was, but I think we're doing it in a different way. I think we are putting our names on our ballots from now on, correct?
That is correct, yes. That's just as a recommendation. There is no firm law that requires, based on what we did the process, what requires at the end when you appoint them, that's where it would have to be a name on the ballot. But in further looking at it and looking at other decisions, it is recommended that we go forward and put the name on the ballots just to keep it clean that way going forward, yes.
Okay, so going forward, names will be on the ballots. As far as the process of motioning to appoint somebody and it having to be voted on, it's my understanding that that is a required process, correct?
Yes, that's a required process.
Okay, so while I agree that last week was rather painful, that's what a deliberating body that can't speak outside of this dais sometimes has to come to. We have to deliberate up here, we have to govern from this dais without speaking with one another outside of this room and outside of these seats. So unfortunately, sometimes it's a little messy to get to the end result, but it's the process that we have to undergo. So, any other comment before we move on with the agenda? Okay, with that, we will move on to presentations. Item E1, Annual Investment Reports. Ms. Alves?
Good morning, Vice Mayor, City Council, Helena Alves, Financial Services Director. I have with me this morning Denny Metz and Leslie Weber. They are with PFM Asset Management. They act as the city's investment advisors, and they're here to provide to you the annual report through December 31st, 2024. Let me see if I can do this right.
Excuse me. Good morning again. My name is Danny Metz. Here with me is Leslie Weber. She is also an institutional sales and relationship manager in our office. We will be going through your annual report. Leslie will also give us an economic update. But before we get into that, we did just want to give a little bit of background on the portfolio and why it's structured the way that it's structured. So here on your screen on the top right, you'll see our philosophy. So we start off with safety. Safety first, safety of principal. Then we move on to liquidity, so making sure you have the dollars that you need when you need them. And then last on our list is yield, return. So this is our philosophy. It also aligns with state statute. So again, in that order, safety, liquidity, and yield. There are a couple ways that we go about this, but the main one that I wanted to touch on is the investment policy. So the city does have an investment policy statement. We worked with the city team at the onset of this engagement to get that finalized and approved before the council. We also look at this annually. We're also looking at it right now, so you may see us in a couple months back here to discuss that. But what do we review when we look at this? So that's what I want to talk about in a few minutes here. So our framework is three-pronged. It consists first of state statute. So what can you do and what can't you do? We look at this in a checklist-like fashion. So we go through the state statute, check off if this is included, add what needs to be included, any changes to legislation, all of that. Then we look at the Association of Public Treasurers of US and Canada. So they are interesting. They actually have a model investment policy. If you send it over to them, you can get a plaque on the wall that says you have the best investment policy ever. But we look at them because they have standard language and requirements that makes it very, very clear, not only to your finance staff, but to us, to you, to your constituents on what's going on. A quick example is adding something as simple as a glossary of terms so that if a constituent were to pick it up, they could have a better understanding of what's going on. And then lastly, GFOA best practices, Government Finance Officials Association. By this point, the third point of the framework, most of these overlap, so you'll see a lot of repetition in what should be included in these best practices. But we do take a look at this because the GFOA focuses specifically on government finance. So if there's anything that is a recurring situation or any change that needs to be made, we want to be able to discuss that and include that as necessary. So just a bit of background there. The short and sweet is safety first, then liquidity, then yield, and there's a bunch of parameters that we'll discuss in a little bit more detail as we go through the portfolio review. But with that, I will pass it over to Leslie for an economic update.
I have some questions really quickly. Thank you for being here this morning, both of you. If you could pop back to the last slide for me.
Yeah.
Under approach, where it says understanding your client's investment objectives, are those when you say objectives, are you talking about your traditional like investment objectives, which is long-term, slow, steady, consistent, not really taking much risk? Is that like the risk assessment objective analysis?
Yeah.
Okay.
So all of that. So the portfolio, the overall investment program is divided into a few different segments. We recently worked with Helena and team on the very short-term end. So dividing that, laddering investments. The portfolio that we'll review is the longer term. But overall, we're looking at what we're segmenting in each segment, your cash flows, your seasonality, and then in the investment policy as well, discussing your risk tolerances, so that piece that you just addressed.
The risk tolerance, thank you. That's much more finessed way of saying what I was trying to get at. And then my other question, the client's cash flow needs. How is a cash flow need defined?
Yeah, sure. So we actually have a cash flow model. We worked actually at the end of last year. We tried to do this annually. So typically around ad valorem season, we'll take all of your balances throughout the year, average them out, kind of figure out your ebbs and flows, your highs and lows, and then work with what your average expenditures look like per month and go from there. Our model spits out a pretty little chart that kind of makes what I'm saying a lot easier, but essentially delineates between what can be invested longer term and what really should stay shorter term to meet those needs. And we typically also add a liquidity cushion, so should something out of the ordinary happen, we make sure you have your liquidity there.
Do you take into consideration what's in our fund balance or our reserves when you're looking at that?
Do you send along this balance?
So yes, it's total cash that's available.
Okay. Well, when you say total cash, you don't mean the entire budget, do you? You just mean the general fund? What funds are we talking about?
Every fund is included in investments.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions before we move on to the economic update? Okay, thank you.
Just so I understand maybe some of the differences to what I understand, but this total, well, I'll wait till we get to the how it's allocated.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll be spending a few minutes just talking about the overall markets here. But before we dive into what's been going on currently, I just wanted to touch a few points on what happened during the fourth quarter, because as Danny's going to talk through the portfolio, it'll give you more of a backdrop. So thinking about current themes that we saw in the fourth quarter, looking at U.S. GDP, or gross domestic product, which is a good health gauge of the U.S. economy. Historically, 2/3 of that has been supported by consumer spending. So that's us going out, spending money, traveling, going out to eat, things like that. That really helps spur the economy, especially since we are a very consumer-driven type of economy. If we think about the Fed's dual mandate is keeping unemployment low, or maximum employment, and also keeping inflation in check. At that time, the Fed felt that they were in good alignment with both of those mandates, but I will say they felt that inflation was a little bit stickier to get back down to that 2% target. And if we think about yields, what did yields do during the fourth quarter? With the Fed, they cut twice during the fourth quarter, so now the overnight rate is 4.25 to 4.5. There has been a pause on that as well. And as they move forward, they are going to be patient, they're going to be data dependent, just given a lot of the uncertainty going forward. But with the yields during the fourth quarter, we did see it rise across the board, particularly in the 2 and 10 year. We did see that rise between 60 to 85 basis points, and that was just a market repricing, just to be more in line with what the Fed was thinking as it relates to the Fed cuts in the future. If we fast forward, if we think about the U.S. economy today, I would say it's been pretty cloudy, only because of the tariffs, the new fiscal policies that are in place or going to be enacted. So uncertainty is going to be the key theme, I think, throughout this quarter and upcoming as well. If we think about the labor market, it's been pretty steady. Now, if we think about inflation, we've seen an uptick in the goods inflation number. Could that be consumers pulling forward some of their purchases in anticipation of prices? We did see an increase in retail sales recently too, so that may make sense. And if we think about the fiscal policy uncertainty, a lot of the volatile tariff rollouts, that's souring consumer sentiment. As I alluded to earlier with GDP, a lot of it is spurred by consumer spending. So if the consumer is feeling uneasy about the economic outlook, if they're thinking prices are going to be raising, thinking about their own balance sheet, how is their behavior going to impact really the hard data of the U.S. economy and the impact of the U.S. economy overall. Now, if we look at the latest Fed dot plot here, we show here, so there's a dot for every place where the Federal Open Market Committee member votes on where they think rates are going to be at the end of each year. So as we could see, from December and March, the median, which is a solid blue line, there is a gray line behind there, and that has not changed. But the dots did change a little bit. So the median is 2 rate cuts for 2025, and you could see out longer term to get to that nominal rate of about 3%. That is that Goldilocks principle where the Feds think that the economy isn't overheating, but it's performing steady as she goes. I did mention that the Fed, going forward, just given the uncertainty, is going to be patient and just being more data reliant as well. There is a good probability that for the first rate cut, it was about 73% odds that the first rate cut will happen in June. But we have to take this chart as a grain of salt because we do know that it does change over time here. Now, if we look at inflation for a second, PCE inflation, personal consumption expenditures, this is the preferred measurement for the Fed because it gives them a more holistic view. So CPI, which is more of the headline inflation that we've seen, we did see that trend lower, but with PCE inflation, we are waiting for the March numbers to come out to give us a year-over-year and month-over-month idea, but that's a more holistic view where not only is it a price of a basket of goods that consumers are spending, but also things that are spent on our behalf. So a good example would be insurance that employers pay. It also takes into account substitutions as well. And if we look at the labor market recently, the unemployment rate did tick up a little bit in March, 4.2%. We're still adding jobs. In March, it was about 228,000 in March, so we're still continuing to add jobs there. So what happened to yields, just to give you an idea here. So the shaded area gives us a 1-year range, so you could see where rates...
Can I just ask you a question about that last comment?
Sure.
So you said that unemployment rate has gone up, but we've also added jobs.
Correct. So more folks are joining the workforce as well.
Okay.
So they're looking for a job, so that increased the unemployment.
Do we know what that's attributed to? Is it attributed to more people that aren't usually in the workforce having to work because of rising costs, or do we know what that's attributed to?
Sure, yeah. Also, if folks are looking for a job, and I think right now the labor market is a little bit tight where there is a job if you're looking for a job, but that's, your skill set isn't always going to be aligned. But I think right now there's not an abundance of jobs out there. So maybe if you are looking for another job, it may be hard to, and it doesn't seem like a lot of companies are hiring at this time, and they're trying to keep their employees that they have.
Thank you.
Sure. So with the U.S. Treasury yield curve, we like to show this because a lot of this type of security is invested in your portfolio. It's safe. It's liquid as well. So you can see the shaded area gives you an idea of where rates have been over a year. And if we look at March 28th compared to February 28th, you could see there wasn't that much movement. But if we move forward, I think we're going to continue to see yields bouncing around a little bit more than normal, just given the economic uncertainty going forward. We have seen 7 years and out to the 30-year, we have seen rates increase across the board, and that's just investors who are looking to invest in treasuries, just demanding more yield, just given, again, the uncertainty. So they're demanding more yield there. So
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
So when we're talking about the dot plot and the Fed rate, and so assuming this is correct, and we know this changes every quarter, right? Assuming this is correct, and the Fed rate gets cut to 3% in a couple of years, how does that affect the overall yield in terms of Treasury?
So I guess it would depend on the issuance that they'll have, but I think getting back down to that 3%, it'll be the overnight rate, the federal funds target rate.
Okay, so it'll be closer to that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So yields across the board there.
Tell you.
Thank you. Yes. So we will, I know Leslie just touched on this. I just wanted to give a quick picture of what the U.S. Treasury yield curve looked at as of December 31st. So I know Leslie already touched on this, but the visual, I think, speaks a lot. So before, in the third quarter, the yield curve was very much inverted, meaning the short-term rates were a lot higher than the longer-term rates. Since then, we've seen a bit of disinversion, and you'll see the kind of volatility since December 31st up until now, and I guess at our next annual report, we can talk about that as well. But I did just want to note that the yield curve is changing. We are seeing higher ends on the longer end, so our strategy at this point in time was to be duration extended, so a little bit above the benchmark in terms of duration. And the reason was to be able to lock in a little bit more of those yields, since we knew that they were going to fall, and the Fed did cut rates towards the end of the year last year. So just to paint a little bit of the picture there.
So I have a question about that as well, and it's, again, just kind of a general financial question. So is the inverted rate here typical? No. And so it was just a product of the appetite of this mid-range risk factor not being something that consumers wanted?
I'm not sure.
So the rate is dropping because people are buying it less, correct?
Right.
Right. So between 2 and 7 years, people don't want those timelines, right? But
Right,
they want
yeah, okay.
either a very long-term one or a short-term liquid one, right?
Right. So with
that's what I was asking. Is that primarily the cause for this kind of inversion? Is that the midterm investments are not as desirable right now for consumers?
Right. So with COVID and the Fed raising rates so high, it kind of inverted the yield curve the way that we see there.
Okay.
So with all of the uncertainty on the longer end, because of so much changing on the shorter end, that's to your point there, where it's a little bit more undesirable because we don't really know what's going to happen further out.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So here we just wanted to show the sector returns, and I'll jump into this as well as we go through the performance as well. But looking at the one-year numbers, we are still, even with all of the volatility, well above the 4 handle, which is really good if we're looking at this historically. So keeping that there in your mind, we'll move into the portfolio. Starting with sector allocation analytics. So this is the piece that I was referring to a little bit earlier with the investment policy. So there are constraints that have been approved in the investment policy here, and they're all different based on the risk tolerances. So here we see U.S. Treasuries, the sector limit is out to 100%. So like Leslie mentioned, U.S. Treasuries are considered the risk-free investment here. So that makes sense to be out 100%. Whereas with several different risk tolerances, we might see something like a corporate note. We don't want that out that far, so 35% there being the limit.
So can you go back? The sector limit is essentially, we've created a strategy that says these are the limits of as much as we want to invest in each of these.
Yes,
so we can go up to these, but it doesn't mean that's the mix that we choose.
Right.
Okay.
So with an active manager, the benefit is that you can kind of switch what we're doing based on, still according to your strategy and what we've approved, but relative value in different sectors depending on what's going on in the market.
Things change over time.
Mm-hmm. On that same tone, there are a few different ones, including max maturity analytics. So again, talking about going out as far, let's say, as 10 years. That wouldn't really make sense for an asset-backed security, as an example, because we don't really know what's going to happen there. That's based on, the majority are based on auto loans. So depending on what's going on in the markets, we don't want to go out too far. So here, again, all well within limits, and this is a product that our portfolio strategies group is always looking at. We get weekly updates on everything that's going on. So another one where we're well within limits.
So are we, and obviously this probably changes, I don't know how often we change this, but so are we shifting more to treasuries right now because of the uncertainty, or how are we shifting the portfolio? So
the portfolio is always a majority of U.S. Treasuries, and that's actually a perfect segue to this slide. The portfolio is always, right now it's 62%, it's always a majority of U.S. Treasuries, and the reason being is that U.S. Treasuries are kind of what everyone flocks to, especially when there's uncertainty. But again, thinking about our philosophy with safety first and liquidity, U.S. Treasuries are considered the risk-free asset. They're are very, very safe. They're the most traded in the secondary market. So moving on to as well with liquidity, if, God forbid, something were to happen and you needed to liquidate half of this portfolio, with U.S. Treasuries making up the majority, we could do that within 1 to 2 days and get you those dollars. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thinking back to the slide where we showed the fixed income returns per sector, U.S. Treasuries, like we mentioned, over 60%, that's usually the case here. Where we get the extra juice and get to focus on that third component, return and yield, is with the other colors that we see here on the top right. So corporate spreads, for example, have been very, very good. We saw those in the previous slide there, over 5%. So that's really where we can get the extra yield there. We have agreed with your finance staff in your investment policy to a 1 to 3 Treasury agency benchmark. So if we look at the bottom right with the duration distribution, I mentioned back in September we were extending duration, so we would be able to lock up a little bit more before yields fell. As Leslie mentioned, with the uncertainty approaching, with the uncertainty right now, we're very much on top of the benchmark. So you can see they pretty much align there. The slight differences are likely the relative value trades that we'll make. So corporates, for example, that's not in the benchmark, but it is in our portfolio. So that's where we get the extra juice there as well. And then if we look at the bottom left with credit quality, this is an S&P chart. Portfolio overall credit quality is AA, so very, very high. The one thing I do like to note is that there's a green area there, 3%, that says not rated. It's not that those securities are not rated, it's just this is an S&P chart and they're not rated by S&P. So the issuers have to pay S&P, and oftentimes that is pretty expensive. But in your monthly statements, which we can pull if you'd like as well, you can see that they're either rated by Moody's or Fitch, and they fall within that AA rating. So high credit quality there. Moving over to the performance, I know this is an annual report, so I'll focus on the one-year piece here. The portfolio, you can see in the blue shaded area, returned 4.42%, outperforming your benchmark by over 30 basis points at 4.09 there. So I know return percentages are great, but what does that really mean? So on the next slide, we show your actual earnings. Over the past year, $2.4 million. And since inception, which is September 30th, 2017, the inception of this portfolio, $7.3 million there. So I'll pause there for questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, and Helena maybe can answer this, but which funds are these? Are these just all of our operating funds from the general fund that are, and I know that's a similar question.
So basically, all of the cash of the city gets invested at some point.
Okay.
So this is the managed portfolio, the slide that they're reviewing right now. So that is a portion. It is a large portion of our cash, but it's not our total cash. If we go back to where this allocation slides are, that is basically the total of all of your holdings, right, at December 31st. You'll see that the U.S. Treasury portion, yes, that's part of the managed portfolio. So is the agency securities. But when you come to the local government investment pool, that's the SBA funds, right? So that is managed by the state. And then you have Florida Prime, which is another large portion of our short-term portfolio that is also managed by the PFM group. They give us a portion that's liquid, and then a portion that is a little bit longer term, but not as long term as the managed portfolio. So every dollar at some point is earning something.
Gotcha. So this is essentially our operating funds, but there's different levels of liquidity based on how fast we're using it. And
That's
then anything that's required by state statute to be separate and not managed. Okay.
Yes.
Just making sure that I understand. So it's kind of this rolling account.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Okay.
includes everything.
Yes.
It's, kind of a simple question, but my understanding is like, how can I explain this? If you look at like bank deposits, $44 million. Now, does that include the fund where you write checks every day? In other words, do you have a separate checking account, like a separate checking account that's any separate from that, or is that included in here?
So bank deposits includes our regular operating account.
Oh, there's no other like rolling account that you use, essentially it's there, that's where.
Yes, it
that's
is.
where
It's
you're right.
included in those funds, yes.
Okay,
And the reason why that's a larger balance is
slightly different than I remember how we did it someplace else, but, so in our case, the investment, this is it. This is the total amount only made except for reserves, is that right? Or does this include reserves?
So this includes all of the funds from the city. So it is going to include reserves, it's going to include our liquid cash, right? It's going to include the funds that are set aside for debt service payments for the budget year. It includes everything. They're just allocated in different pockets depending on when we expect to use the funds. So your reserves are going to be more in the managed portfolio because they're a little bit more long-term than our operating cash.
And is that a standard method of doing these types of investments? Okay, it is standard.
Yeah. So we work all over Florida and nationally as well, and this slide is typically popular to help answer these questions as well. So it's typically all of your funds, and then we have different segments. So again, that short term, the local government investment pool, that includes liquid dollars and reserve dollars to help meet liquidity needs. Your bank accounts will be those rolling accounts where there's significant, like payroll or anything that regularly comes out. And then Florida Prime is the state-managed one where that's also a reserve. It typically yields higher than a bank account, but you can pull it out every day if you need to. So daily liquidity there. So just different segments, but all of your dollars are there, and that's typical.
So the dollars of Palm Coast are being used in the typical way other municipalities do it?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Councilman Sullivan?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, ladies, for your presentation this morning. It's extremely helpful, and what I'd like to point out is we just recently had our auditors come back and back brief, and one of the things that they highlighted was, hey, you're doing a great job in your investments and how you're managing them going forward. So thank you for helping us, and thanks to the finance team and executing the strategy as we move forward. So just one simple question. I know we're getting towards the end here, but overall, what is your recommendation? Do we hold what we're doing now, or do you recommend any changes going forward? What's kind of do you have any broad recommendations?
Oh, I can if you want. No, go ahead. Yeah, so we, specifically lately with all of the uncertainty, our portfolio strategies team, they're the really smart people behind the trading desk with all of the monitors that look like you're on Wall Street. They have meetings with us weekly to kind of keep us updated on what's going on. With all of the uncertainty right now, the answer is kind of hold and wait. So right now we're sticking duration neutral, sticking to the benchmark, sticking to what we have been doing and not making any changes that could jeopardize us later until we get a little bit more clarity from the Fed on what's going on and a little bit more clarity of the effects of the administration's policies and how those will affect our portfolios moving forward.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Anything else, ladies?
No, that's all from us. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate all the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Anything else from you, Helena, on this presentation?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next presentation, item E2.
Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, public comment. You're right. Thank you. Was anybody able to digest everything and wishes to comment on it? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's Ms. Rice. We'll move on to the next presentation, year-to-date budget overview, item E2.
Mayor, City Council, as Helena is getting ready to put the presentation on, this is a part of our annual process. These are your year-to-date financials at our midpoint, so it's the first 6 months. And we've included an evaluation of where we were at this time last year, so you know what was budgeted, where we are, and where we were at this time last year. And we would look forward to any type of budget guidance that you have for us as we start to navigate this upcoming budget season. Many of the departments have already starting putting together their budgets regarding programs, service delivery, level of service. That will be forthcoming to you in the next couple of months. Helena?
Thank you. Once again, Good morning, Helena Alves, Financial Services Director, and I also have with me Gwen Ragsdale. She's our Budget and Procurement Manager. And as Ms. Johnson stated, we're here to present to you the year-to-date operating budget to actual comparison through March 31st. We will be presenting revenue and expenditures for operational funds. Our fiscal year runs October 1st through September 30th. So the numbers you'll see today represent the first 6 months of the fiscal year from October 1st to March 31st. And we'll also review our budget timeline. So we'll start with revenues. The budget staff has put together a quick reference booklet to explain city revenues. It contains detailed explanations of each major revenue source used by the city. It also outlines the authorized uses for the funds and the legislative body that imposes usage restrictions. This tool was created to help the public navigate the different funding sources and understand their appropriate uses. We have copies here at City Hall, which are available at each meeting for those interested. So we'll go ahead and get started with the general fund.
Helene, I'm going to stop you for just a second. Can you go back? Thank you. I think it's really, really important to look at this dollar picture where it shows you exactly how much of each one of your ad valorem dollars goes to certain entities. It's really, really important because, you know, I know the city takes a lot of heat for the budget, as it should, just in general, because we need to be very mindful of where taxpayer dollars are going. But only 23 cents of each of your ad valorem dollars actually comes to the city of Palm Coast. So each ad valorem dollar is split up in the way this picture shows, where is that 45 cents? It's very small. 45 cents goes to the county, right? I believe 29 cents goes to school board, and 23 cents comes to the city. So, you know, as we engage in the budget process and we talk about millage and all of those things, it's just very important to keep this top of mind so that you know how each one of your dollars is actually divided up. Any other comments on this slide?
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, I see, you know, some confusion with that, you know, out on social media and things like that. So I think it's a good point to say, hey, this is where our rate and our millage rate has actually gone down over the last 10 years and boards prior. So this is my first year kind of we'll be working through the budget process. And so that's not to say that it needs to go up or anything like that. Oftentimes I'm told that we increase taxes and things like that, and the reality is the rate has actually been going down for the city. It may have been picked up by some of these other entities that some of your dollars go to, and that's where you're seeing it. The bill is going up, the total bill, but our portion, the rate has gone down for quite some time now. So I think it's important for everyone to understand that, you know, this is kind of broken up, and you know, the other portion, I think that's mosquito and some other things as well, right?
Find.
Yeah.
The marine land.
So the inland water. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
It's very, very helpful slide. I actually carry it with me in my binder, just because when those questions come out, we say, well, I'm glad you asked. Let's lay it out. So, thank you.
The money slide, you would say, Councilman?
The money slide, that's it.
And I know that we can now, at least within the county, bring up somebody's tax rate and then break it down by where that money is spent across the city, by each individual's, how much.
Yes, that's a good point. I believe there's a dashboard on the county website. Transparency dashboard that you can put in your information, and it'll basically break down everything, where every dollar is going from your bill, in a more you know, explanatory manner than this.
Yeah, it's a very cool tool. If you haven't checked it out for the residents, go to that transparency dashboard, and like Councilman Sullivan was explaining, you literally can see where every penny of your paid tax dollars are going for different services that the county and the city offer. So definitely take advantage of that.
So we'll go ahead and get started with the general fund. As you can see, the major revenue source for the general fund is ad valorem taxes. We have collected approximately 93%, which is typical for a city at this point in time. The deadline for payment is April 1st, so we will be receiving additional distributions from the tax collector in the next couple of months. The half-cent sales tax and communication services tax collected were for the first 4 months. We don't anticipate issues meeting the budgeted revenues, and as in previous years, we will continue to monitor the state revenues and update projections as we move forward with the budget process. The state revenue sharing, that represents 6 months of distributions, and it's running right on target. Permits, fees, and assessments are ahead. This category includes planning and zoning permit review fees, which are subject to volume, as well as franchise fees, both gas and solid waste. Again, we'll continue to monitor and adjust through projections if needed as we go through the summer presentations.
I'm sorry, Elena, can you, these other taxes, I know they're a relatively small portion of the overall numbers, but can you go back and, maybe I missed it, why they, whatever these are, lag behind everything else? We're only collecting 14% of those.
Of course,
at
sure.
this point.
So the category under other taxes is our business tax, which the renewals really don't go out until July 1st, so you'll see the bulk of that revenue.
Okay, so we don't even start
later on.
collecting until after mid of the year.
That is correct. And the other portion of that is the state distribution for fire insurance for the Section 175 pension plan, and those distributions do not happen until August. So those revenues will always run low until we receive.
It makes sense, and it's typical then. I figured that was the case since the last year's version of it was very similar.
Pretty much the same, yes. Judgments, okay, so judgments, fines, and forfeitures, that includes, this category is code enforcement fines and administrative fees, hazardous tree removal, fire mitigation, and Flagler County Sheriff's Office traffic fines issued. This category is also running on target. As the next interest income on short-term investments, as you heard, continues to trend on the higher side. That's because of that inverted yield curve, right? So we're purposely conservative when budgeting, since it's a volatile type of revenue. That's why you see such a large variance between your actual and your budgeted amounts. Parks and Recreation revenues, those include Palm Harbor Golf, the Southern Recreation Center, and Aquatic Center. They are in line with last year's. The Southern Recreation Center has currently 613 pickleball active pass holders, 118 tennis active pass holders, 49 combo, and totally daily passes are at 2,634. The Aquatic Center is open seasonal hours from February 3rd to November 7th, so we should see an increase starting in the third quarter, as well when the weather gets warmer and school is out.
Just wanted to stop there and kind of point out these revenues. So as you mentioned, golf course is at 60%, which looks typical, or 61%, which is typical of the previous year. So we just are coming out of the busy season, right? So we expect to have less rounds played going forward. And then the opposite seems true of aquatics, that as we get warmer, that will be the busy season. Southern Rec, is this because it is also seasonal, or is it outperforming? Is that?
So we're right now at 1 full year that the facility is, has been open. So it is performing well. We are seeing an increase in membership and utilization, both on the pickleball side and the tennis side, due to the additional tennis courts that were recently finalized. So it is performing well. And we are seeing increased foot traffic utilizing the spaces for the community rooms upstairs, whether it's various nonprofit organizations like the Knights of Columbus and Rotary, to birthday parties and et cetera.
So we should expect to see us exceed our budgeted revenues?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Your other charges for services are at 55%. This includes town center deputy reimbursement, FDOT traffic signal maintenance, quarterly mowing contract, as well as lien search and other miscellaneous revenue. This category is also running on target. Your next two categories are internal transfers. So those are For your internal service funds, which we do on a monthly basis, so you're expected to be at the 50%. And the paid in lieu of tax, which the distribution is done right after we receive the bulk of the tax receipts from the tax collector, so those will always be running at right around the 100%.
Can we go deeper into the internal service transfers, just what that entails?
Yes. So your internal service transfers for the general fund, give me 1 second. So we have the water, wastewater utility and capital. We have the stormwater building. There's also a small portion for managing the CDBG grant, the IT fiber fund, as well as your fleet management.
Okay, so it's revenues coming from other sources of either
For their
government-
portion of administrative services,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And IT is included in that, right, or is that separate?
Yes, it is, the IT fiber fund.
In other words, services that other departments use, if it's IT, for instance, it'll be included in that.
So these are, on the revenue side, these are revenues provided for administration side, right? Their portion of financial services, portion of HR, city council budget, right? Because those are general fund activities, so they're paid for the general fund, but we are performing for other funds, so they pay their portion, just like they do on the IT operations side.
How do you figure out, though, that percentage?
So for the general allocation is based on budget.
Okay. So that department's budget, what percentage of that is of the total budget?
For the general fund, yes. For general fund
Okay.
administration, yes.
Okay.
So, for instance, utility would be paying a large portion of all these services back to the general fund. Is that correct?
Yes, they would
Yeah.
be paying their fair share
Because
of
they
the
have the
general
largest.
fund.
Okay.
Helena, another term that you've used in the past, I think it's allocation, right? When it comes to, let's say, stormwater, using X amount of vehicles or utility, things of that nature. But to kind of drill down a little bit more on the Vice Mayor's point, is it a per hour rate? I mean, how do you guys break that cost down? I know the different departments budget for that, but I mean, how do we do that?
So for the general allocation, administrative allocation, it's a percentage of budget, right? A percentage of financial services time versus the percentage of operational costs, let's say, or costs for the utility. So whatever their portion of the overall budget is, they get allocated that percentage of the administrative in the general fund, and that's a pretty common practice. So when it comes to IT allocation, a portion of it is budget, but a larger also is the number of employees, right? Because when you look at IT, you've got number of computers, connections, licenses, whereas, administrative time is the time we spent on contracts, agendas, approvals, right? Check writing, all of that, all of those functions.
Okay.
So it depends. And when it comes to fleet, of course, the type of vehicle, how much does it cost to replace, right? There's different components that'll go into it, the life of the asset, what year was purchased, what's the inflation for vehicles,
Okay.
and all those different components.
So you guys have a formula for it. I mean, I was
Right.
thinking in terms of
Oh, yes.
billable hours.
Yeah, so if it's an objective formula, I think is what we're looking for. In other words, every year budget doesn't just say, hey, you know what, we think that, 1.2 million needs to be transferred over this year. Okay, so there's an objective formula that's put into place every year. I think that's what you were trying to get at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it does, and it gets, reviewed about 3 or 4 times before it gets implemented.
Okay.
So, I mean, my only follow-up on that would be, then, you have kind of a formula, how you set this up year to year, 6%, What happens if there has to be a change in that formula? Does that have to come back to the board here for a change in how the budget is allocated?
So interfund transfers are as approved by council. So if there was to be a change in anything that needs to be transferred between funds, it would require council approval, and it would also require a budget amendment. And you'll see one coming up on your May agenda, not related to allocations, but related to additional funds from utility operating to utility capital for projects. So anything of that nature actually requires your
Is
action.
there a number on that, like you can do it up to 10,000, 50,000?
No, sir.
Or is it just any change? to
No,
what
sir.
was-
Any interfund transfers cannot exceed the amount budgeted without council approval. We can transfer less if there's not enough costs, but no more.
Any other
And that
questions?
gets audited separately and reported to you by your external auditors every year.
Yeah. Any other questions on this slide?
No, my only question would be is, obviously if we're using kind of, I don't want to say generic, but, it's not actual cost basis, right, when we're doing these transfers. Have we experienced any issues where a department is not being funded properly for the work that they're having to do for other departments? I.e., have we looked into, has this required any changes in the past, or?
So we've had to make changes only when reacting to market conditions, right? So your fleet replacement fund, with all the cost increase that happened post-COVID, those allocations had to be reviewed, and it required one-time transfers to make some of the purchases whole. So that's not something typically, I'd never experienced that before in my career, but we had never experienced 9% inflation rates either. So we kind of had to adjust.
Yeah, and
with
so
the
that's
market.
understandable because there is a fundamental change in what costs look like for a couple of years there. And, they never really went back, right? So we had to adjust to it.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not in a situation to where, one department that's providing administrative services or some sort of services is not, getting their fair share back from another department, and just making sure that we are continually kind of looking at that and making sure
Absolutely.
that they don't go underfunded for the benefit of another department.
Absolutely.
You can go on, thank you.
You're welcome. So now we're going to move into proprietary fund operating revenues, water and wastewater charges for services. They typically run behind 4 to 6 weeks, since utility bill is always for the previous month. So you're not typically ahead on billing for water, wastewater. So the percentage collected is consistent with prior years. We don't expect any issues. And the same applies to solid waste charges and stormwater. They're attached to the same utility bills. The building fund is at 48%. As you recall, we implemented a planned reduction in revenues to use existing fund balance in previous year, and that's reflected in the lower percentage from fiscal year 2024. That building official continues to monitor the fund balance to make sure that we stay within the allowed compliance guidelines. The IT enterprise fund is running ahead of budget. It's mainly due to contract dates and payment for cell tower revenues being due on the first of the month. So they're collected a little bit ahead of budget. So this completes our review of revenues. And before we move on to expenditures, do you have any questions?
Any other questions before we go to expenditures? Okay, Helena, please proceed.
Thank you. So I will turn it over to Gwen.
Good morning, Vice Mayor and Council. So as Helena mentioned, we are 6 months into our fiscal year, and we expect to be under or at 50% of our budget for our actual expenditures on the operating funds. So city administration and department directors meet quarterly to review their budgets. So first is the administration and finance area for fiscal year 2025 is $8 million was our budget. And the total expected to date is approximately $3.1 million. So approximately 39% has been expended. We don't anticipate any budgetary issues at this point. There are timing issues created by some subscriptions that are paid at certain points in the fiscal year and the timing of hiring staff. There are also contracted and professional services that are either paid earlier in the fiscal year or will occur later in the fiscal year. All budgets should even out by the end of the year. So Community Development has a total budget for fiscal year 2025 of $11.9 million, and the total expended to date is approximately $4.7 million, so approximately 37% expended. The building fund is at 39% due to contracted service expenses that will occur in the second half of the year, as well as planned transfers to capital project funds for projects. Transfers will not be completed until the second part of the year. Economic development is at 22%. If you recall, $162,000 was added from the appropriated fund balance to the fiscal year 2025 budget to be used for the department in areas of initiatives.
I just want to stop you really quickly because later on today, council members, we're going to talk about SAP. And as we look at what is left in economic development, we really haven't expended much monies at all. What we've allocated, in my opinion, is way under. We really need to invest in economic development. And I know part of these monies were to be set aside for incentives, I believe, and I don't recall the exact number, but we haven't used, or I should say nobody else has taken advantage of those incentives. So as we look at our priorities and we talk about how we're going to budget and allocate monies this year, we need to think about advertising for economic development, advertising some of these incentives, whether or not certain incentives are just not attractive enough right now because they're clearly not being utilized. And there's a reason why. There's got to be a reason, whether it's our methodology, our lack of advertisement, or just the certain incentives that we decided on in with previous council. So I just think it's important that we look at this. I mean, you're talking about we're halfway through the fiscal year and we've used 22% of economic development dollars. That is way, way under. So just something to really keep in mind as we move forward into the SAP presentation later on today.
So I agree, Vice Mayor. I think, and you're advocating for more funds being allocated as well, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So we had the opportunity to go to a presentation. I don't think you made it at the last second. There was something that popped up, but they talked specifically. We had some professors from University of Florida come and talk about economic development, and they talked about kind of baselines in terms of what the expectation is in terms of economic development investment as a portion of a city's budget. And they pointed out that ours is severely underfunded and that we're kind of behind in that. So my takeaway from that was the same, that we need to invest in this more. I know previous councils have talked about it. I've talked about it during my campaign. We've talked about it up here about the tax revenue mix. And so the only way to fix that problem is to invest in it and ensure that our residents are paying less proportion in terms of taxes to our overall budget so that we can do more services, not at the cost of our residents, but also expand jobs, bring in more revenue into the city in other ways than just our tax base. So it becomes this kind of virtuous cycle of positive economic development. So I'm fully on board with trying to spend more money on economic development because I think it's something that will return in spades if we do it successfully.
It's normally the first question I get, what are the incentives? Is it a tax break for the first 2-3 years? Kind of the Nikki Haley model up in South Carolina, right, with the BMW plan or the Boeing plan.
Like the inverted pyramid of taxes.
Yeah, or is it actual cash dollars that we put into it? And I think it's, I look forward to having that discussion because I do agree that we need to do a better job in engaging in that.
And I would appreciate some education, city manager, on what standards are in terms of incentives. I don't know what the standard is, what makes us better or worse than other cities. I'd like to know that information so that we can, try to build a package to entice people to come here and bring jobs and bring money.
Understood. And this will be definitely a good opportunity during your strategic action plan presentation as we have a targeted priority on economic development. So really want to hear through those objectives and then understand that you want a forthcoming presentation related to those incentives.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I agree with that, but the track record for the last 2 years, last year it was even worse. We only had 7% allocated at this point. This year, it's actually 3 times as much. So you can look at it, but something's not right. And I know that on incentives and things, the idea of providing incentives up front, actual cash up front, is not the way to go, what we've found over the years. It's more or less that you come to an agreement with a company that they're going to have this many employees one year and then twice as many the next year.
Yep.
If they do that, then they continue to get the incentives or the tax breaks or whatever. But I mean, right now, not knowing anything else, I would say I would be reluctant to put any more money into that if we don't have a plan that will work. I mean, just put them, and I understand a lot of it's on the incentive side, but apparently whatever we're doing is not working.
Well, and I would agree with you, Councilman. I think that was part of the point in wanting to point out this figure right here. Why are these incentives not being utilized right now? What do we need to do to be quite frank with you, I don't even remember what incentives we promoted last year because I haven't seen any evidence of them out there at all. And I don't know what companies have come in to take advantage of them, if any. So I think we just need to do a better job advertising these, and I know our economic development director has been working really hard, and we have gotten some good companies to come in over the past year or two, and he's been going to a lot of trade shows and things like that to promote the city, but just a better job, I think, in general of promoting the incentives and really, putting ourselves out there in a larger and more prolific way. So that's why I pointed out specifically for this, because I do agree. We need to better utilize what we have budgeted for. Anything else on this slide before we move on?
No, I just think it was a good point about the visiting different conferences and things like that. I know we've targeted, an analysis has targeted space-adjacent industries since we're so close to Kennedy Space Center, as well as precision manufacturing and things like that. So I had the opportunity to go to SpaceCom as well with Craig to talk to companies, and we had conversations with a lot of different companies that are looking to move into the area. So hopefully some of these things will come to fruition in the future, but also we need to continually reevaluate what we're doing and try to do a better job of it at all times so that we can just get better every time.
Please proceed. Thank you.
So public safety includes the fire department as well as the enhanced law enforcement services contract with the Flagler County Sheriff's Office, has a total budget for fiscal year 2025 of $23.4 million. The total expended to date is $11.3 million, so approximately 50%. You see the Flagler County Sheriff's also is for 7 payments, which includes the April payment. Parks and Recreation, including the golf course, the Southern Recreation Center, the Aquatic Center, as well as Parks Maintenance, has a total budget for fiscal year 2025 of $9 million. The total expended to date is approximately $4.1 million, so approximately 45%. So the percentages fall into the expected levels. As you can see, the Aquatic Center has seasonal hours, as we mentioned before. And now that it is open, we expect that the pool expenses will catch up.
So question about this. In terms of the golf course, I would assume that there's some variable costs that are associated with volume of users. And so it looks to me that while we've collected 60% of our projected revenues, we've only expended 50% of our budget. So that seems like a good thing on face value. If it was 60 and 60, then I would say, okay, this all lines up. But it seems like we're spending less money halfway through the year while generating more revenue. And knowing that it's the busy season, that makes sense in terms of that. But the costs, I would expect we would incur more than 50% of the costs as well during the busy season. So I don't know if there's an explanation for that.
Yes, Councilmember Miller, it's because also the facility is seasonal, so you're spending more money in the warmer months on chemicals to have the greens in certain conditions. It's also when we aerate the course as well. So revenue is typically up in your busy season, but we're not expending that much money during busy season.
Okay, so we expect more maintenance costs during the summer months because that's when
Yes.
the maintenance is typically done because it's slow season as well as growing season.
Yes, and on the next slide, when we get into public works or streets, that's the same as well for medians and right-of-way landscaping. It's, when it's warmer, there's more maintenance that's needed on greens.
Yeah, I feel it every couple of weeks in my own yard. It'll get to every 6 days at some point, so, you know.
I just had one question on the expenditures. You know, when you look at, and I understand one's revenue and one's expenditures, but the fiscal year 25 approved budget for the Palm Harbor Golf Course was 1.510, you know, 1,510,000, and the approved budget for expenditures is 1.949, 1,949,000. So we intend to have a deficit on the golf course when we agree to the budget at the beginning of the year.
Can I repeat that question, say it a little bit differently?
Okay.
We have reduced the budgeted expenditures because City Council gave us direction at a previous meeting to be cost recovery. So while the budget may have been 1.9, we've reduced expenditures to make sure we're cost recovery.
Okay, but, so the intent would have it come down to 1.5, which was approved in the 25 budget.
I think those numbers are further detailed on the Palm Harbor presentation that's immediately following this one.
Okay, on new, so I'm just looking at.
Yeah, so just background, we've had discussions on the fact that we've been losing, at least in the last budget, $500,000.
It's just what you gave me today. So
Right,
that's all.
yeah. So a couple months back, we had a discussion about, at a minimum, trying to make sure that the golf course is cost recovery, because I think at the time, and it was my argument at the time, so I don't want to mischaracterize anybody else's thoughts on it, was that it's an amenity, it's a recreational amenity, but it's something that's replicated in private entity. So if we're going to also do this, that we should be cost recovery versus something that, you know, a private entity won't provide, like a city park or a trail or things like that. Those things cost money and nobody else can do those
I was just
things,
looking
but.
at the numbers.
No, I got you. So we got to the point to where we basically asked for cost recovery so that we're not losing money on this golf course. So the actuals should prove to be cost recovery versus what was budgeted, which was, I think, a $500,000 loss.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the Public Works Department has a total budget for fiscal year 2025 of $42 million. The total expended to date is approximately $18.6 million, so approximately 45% expended. So the fleet management budget includes $6.9 million of capital purchases. There are still some lag issues with equipment and vehicle purchases. Currently, we have received $32,000 for the fiscal year 2023 purchases and $1.2 million for fiscal year 2024 and $2.3 million for fiscal year 2025. There is still $1.7 million of the fiscal year 2024 assets that have not been received, and we still have $1.5 million of the 2025 assets to be received. But as you can see from last year's percentage at this time, the supply chain is moving better.
So is that typical that just because of lead times in terms of specialty equipment, I assume, you know, some of these vehicles are very niche and specialty, especially in stormwater and public works, that we see this lag?
So we started experiencing this lag post-COVID,
Right.
when there were supply chain issues. We hadn't encountered it before, not to this level. There are some specialty, especially fire type
fire
of vehicles
department
that are
takes a
more of a
couple years,
long-term
right?
purchase. But these were more typical to that supply chain issues. Now, we are seeing things move, and I think that's what we
So
were trying to
it's rebounding
point
back
out,
into
that it is
more
getting
typical.
better. It's not there yet, but it is getting better.
Okay.
If you need specific vehicle type of information, that I would have to
And
call on my Matt Mansell friend.
When we make these purchases, yeah, I'm sorry if I'm asking stuff outside your wheelhouse.
That's okay.
When we make these purchases, if there is a delay, right, if there's an expectation of 12-month delivery and it takes 24 months, we're locked in at that original pricing?
Yes, so our POs have a specific contract attached to
Okay.
it, and typically, yes, we are locked in.
Okay, so there is, not that we wouldn't rather have the vehicle there first or immediately, there is some financial benefit because we're not paying for market prices today, we're paying for market prices in the past.
When we ordered, yes.
When will we start budgeting for the needed apparatus for the new fire stations?
So that will come with your fiscal year 2026 budget.
Okay. So we should see the cost of those in the budget presentations coming up in a few months.
Yes, Vice Mayor Pontieri, it was my intention, working with Chief Berryhill, that we would have a separate workshop item just on the fire department needs for the 2 new fire stations.
And in terms of that same timeline with the lag, we're in a good spot to be able to order that in time to receive it for operations there, or would we be kind of shifting or moving some resources around to try to cover it until those come in?
Our current equipment would go over with us at the new stations.
Airport? Is that
Yes,
correct?
and from the current Fire Station 22, there is long lead times on these items, anywhere between 18 months to 3 years. So we are working diligently on minimizing those impacts, and all of that will be forthcoming to you at a future presentation.
Go ahead.
So the water wastewater total budget for fiscal year 2025 is $71.3 million. The total expended to date is approximately $36.3 million. So 51% has been expended. The department includes the administration division, the wastewater division, and water division. The percentages are all in line, and the non-departmental is over the 50% mark since it includes debt service payments that are made in the first quarter, as well as the transfer to utility capital projects for the renewal and replacement dollars.
Can you just touch on what the rest of that non-departmental kind of entails?
So
So those 2 accounts for 9.2, and we got 30 total.
So your total budgeted interfund transfers for the R&R is $12.8 million. But the transfer that has been done to date is the $8 million, which is the 12.5% of prior year's operational revenues. We won't transfer the balance until we hit the third quarter. So that's why you see the percentage is a little bit higher than the 50%. Also in there is debt service principal payments of about $13 million. Typically, it'll be towards September for October 1st payment, so you'll see that bulk there. And how much is interest? Oh, so the $13 million includes principal of $11.4 million and then interest of $1.5 million.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Is there a reason why we don't have debt service just as a separate line item?
We could present it to you that way if you prefer.
I think it would be helpful. I don't
of
know how
course.
council feels about that, but I think us being able to see what our debt service is in these presentations, rather than lumping it into the non-departmental, would be helpful. I think it's important that we see, every time we're looking at these budgets, what we're paying in debt service.
Absolutely, yeah.
I
We'll
mean,
have it
is that
separated
okay
as a
with
separate
council?
line item.
Support that.
Yeah, I'm good.
I would support that.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
Okay, yep, you're welcome.
Any other questions on this slide, gentlemen? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, as we continue to Stormwater Engineering Department, they have a total budget for fiscal year 2025 of $22 million, and the total expended to date is approximately $10 million, so approximately 45% is expended. So the stormwater non-departmental is at 56%, mainly due to the stormwater loan costs and the associated closing fees.
Go ahead.
So lastly, we end with information technology. The department has a total budget for fiscal year 2025 of $7.9 million. The total expended to date is approximately $4.1 million, so approximately 42% expended. The internal services are at 56% due to yearly subscriptions that are purchased at the beginning of the year.
So I have a question about IT, and my question revolves around if we're utilizing, say, technology for stormwater, like a weir management system or something like that, does that fall under this budget, or does that fall under stormwater's budget?
It would go into this budget. We try to concentrate IT type of expenditures, even if they're directly related to a specific department within the IT budget, so you can kind of get a big picture, right, of how much it costs.
All the IT rolled up together.
But then they pay their portion in the allocations.
So, similar to the advocating that you did for, what were we talking about earlier? Oh, for economic development and our strategic action plan. I'd like to advocate for trying to think of different ways that we can perform infrastructure upgrades and try to find novel ways to do it that may not require huge capital improvement projects and things like that. So I've been engaging with IT as well as, I think it's the Northeast Florida Economic, is it?
Smart North Florida?
Yeah, Smart North Florida. We're trying to, there's certain technologies that we could install in traffic light management, things like that, that may help a more smoother transition throughout the city in terms of light timing. And some of this is kind of in its infancy, but it would require more investment, to do that. But in my eyes, rather than shutting down a major road for a year and a half to build something that will cost tens of millions of dollars, an investment that does give us a return in terms of the ease at which we can travel across town. Because I hear that complaint, behind utility in terms of infrastructure, I think our roads are the next most important thing. And so I think as an ancillary, but not replacing roadway improvement, as another thing that we can do, investing in IT products that can help us. And that means, potentially some of our light timing cabinets are not capable of having this investment. So some of those might need to be upgraded, investing in the software itself to manage and use some of those real time. We have fiber loop with cameras that our sheriff utilizes to read plates and things like that. We could use those things as well as a lot of Internet of Things types technologies. Insurance companies give people things to put in their glove box so they can track their driving. Well, we can also, those things, that information is also part of this, right? We can use that to see how many cars actually go through certain intersections real time and change the lighting that way. And so the ultimate goal is kind of a real time management, where it's changing on the fly based on actual cars going through intersections. Leading up to that, you would have kind of a collection of data and a changing of the timing, based on, maybe like a weekly evaluation of traffic. And then as this technology matures, what you would have is that real-time management. So just wanted to put that in everybody's ear, that I'd be advocating for trying to fund that in some way as well, because I think for a relatively, in terms of CIP, relatively low-cost investment, we get more out of it than spending tens of millions of dollars on roadways and things like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that anytime we can leverage technology to better improve services, we need to look into doing it. And so again, I would encourage you, let's talk about that more during SAP as well. I hear the same complaint. So, and as somebody who obviously drives on the road, I'm sure you all feel it, the timing of the traffic lights definitely could use some work. So any other comments or questions on this slide?
Just on IT, this is just a general comment, new guy in town. Just in general, are our budgeting and the way we handle money and our computer systems that we use here, are they kind of up to date? We're not looking at a major expense to upgrade the whole system or something, because we've gone through that other places I've been, that's expensive. And my other comment is, I know that that AI and IT and all that are supposed to cut down on, improve the overall situation and theoretically cut down on the number of people it takes to operate the overall system. It doesn't ever seem to work out that way. Remember computers, we were going to do away with paper. There's more paper now than ever, things like that. So I always have my doubts about when I hear that we're going to improve things. Traffic light management, well, those are all good things, but they all cost money, and so it's a cost-benefit analysis on that. So, but anyway, so we're, just in general, we're okay IT-wise as far as our software systems and things like that. at the city or not?
So thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. So there's always room for improvement, and this is why it is on your strategic action plan. There is a targeted objective to have a technology improvement plan, and many of the things you identified are on there. So updating our hardware systems, software, et cetera. So it is something that we're monitoring and working on, but we're okay, but we can always be better.
I think they just invested in quite a few programs and in some other items. Even before my time, I think I kind of walked into a mid, yeah.
No, Nick was a big proponent across the county.
Yeah.
To Councilman Miller's point, if we can address the traffic issues faster, whether they're waiting on the TPO to move the funding for State Road 100 up, hopefully, and by the end of 2030 or something like that, I'm all for it. Yeah, it may be an opportunity to just solve problems quicker for our residents.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's the magic bullet that's going to fix all traffic. It's just another thing to do to make it all a little bit better. And I think to Councilman Sullivan's point, everything should be evaluated on an ROI basis, right? So whatever provides the most ROI is what we should start with, and then build on that as it goes down the list. So my understanding of this is it would be a high ROI because the cost would be nothing in comparison to adding turn lanes or things like that. So that's why I'm advocating for it. Trying to find alternative means of infrastructure, right? Investment. So.
One last question, just because you brought up the road situation. On the improvement to 100, repaving, adding lanes and all that kind of thing, my understanding was that we're not going to be allowed to time those lights until FDOT turns over the road back to us, at which point we then can go ahead. They're not timed now.
That's correct.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Right. So if that's the particular issue, we kind of need to see what happens when we get the road back and we do use the timing system that's available now.
I think that's just one of the issues.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
But I hear what you're saying. Yes, of course. Yeah. Please proceed. Thank you.
Okay, so we will go over some highlights in the budget timeline. So our next presentation will be June 24th on the property tax overview and trim. July starts our budget workshops and the adoption of the tentative millage rate. August will be our capital budgets and the final proposed budget. And then in September, we will hold our 2 public hearings. So we want to remind the public where they can find all of our budget information. As in previous years, we have set up the fiscal year 2026 budget preparation link on the city's website. This is where we will post all of our presentations, budget calendar, and any supporting documentation as we move through the budget process. In 2024, the city's financial transparency dashboard was introduced, and we would like to take a moment to remind the public of this tool. The dashboard provides a transparent look at the types of revenues we collect and how we allocate public funds. The charts, graphs, and tables included are highly interactive, and we invite the public to explore. You will find a link to this on the front of the city's website. This completes our presentation if you have any additional questions.
So I don't have any other questions about the presentation. Thank you, ladies, for the work that you've put into this. A general comment. I know we're looking at where the figures are for expenditures year to date. I would encourage, and I know our department heads try this anyways, as does city manager. If we came in 2% under budget, organizational wide in different departments, we could save about $10 million. So, that's a lot of money. And obviously there's certain constraints on some of those monies because certain funds have constraints. But if we can just make that a goal, if everybody came in even 2% under budget, it would be a lot of cost savings. And I know that seems like a small goal, but I think it's an attainable goal. And so I would just encourage staff as you're working through your budgets, we're halfway through, or it seems to be on the large doing very well. But let's just keep that trend going and not have this either we spend it or lose it type of mentality. Because from what I understand so far, property values are remaining pretty flat. So we can probably keep the same millage and it wouldn't result in a tax hike. They call it a tax hike because property values have raised, which is silly to me, but that aside. we could even do a slight rollback and still potentially bring in the same amount of revenues. But I would just encourage staff to work really hard towards that as we continue to go through our budget process. Are there any other comments or questions before we move on to the next?
Yeah, I was
agenda
just
item?
going to say, I agree with the premise that, we should always be trying to find efficiencies. And to the point, when you say $10 million, we talk about things that this community needs, a YMCA, turn lane projects, traffic lights, things like that. $10 million buys a bunch of that, right? And when we struggle to find that in our actual budget and try to find places we can do it, if we could have that goal and meet that goal, that would do a lot in terms of trying to catch up with infrastructure, which is, our goal up here to get this, our infrastructure back up to par with what we expect. And so meeting some of those or getting some of those windfalls in terms of being more efficient in terms of our budget would go a long way towards that. So echo that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes.
Yeah, this is just me being new and all that. We all understand that our tax collector, we budget at 95% because we think generally, that's about as good as they do on collecting taxes. But here in our county and city, she does better than that. So usually we'll get a little bit of a windfall above that 95% tax each year. So that's another space where we can hopefully pick up another $1 million.
Yeah, no, thank you for pointing that out. Absolutely correct.
We don't plan for that. We wait and see what happens, right? Mm-hmm. So that's another spot we might.
Part of the conservative budgeting that our county
Right.
engages in, certainly.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything from you, Councilman Gambaro? Okay. And we got to go out to public comment. I'm sorry, any last comments in response? Okay, public comment?
Mark Webb, Palm Coast. I have a question about the aquatic center. So if I understand correctly, it is exceeding the expectation by 8% from this time last year.
So
that's what the chart showed. Secondly, the aquatic center, I believe, was opened longer through the winter months in an attempt to see if there was a need in 2024, which has not occurred this winter. It was closed for several months. So based on the numbers that I see that they've presented, we are now entering into the highest use expectation of the aquatic center. I myself use it when it gets a little warmer and the water gets warmer, and I'll use it through the whole summer. And I will see a plethora of kids at summer camp, and its use is going to be phenomenal, and it exceeded the value than every other asset that we had in question. So I just wanted to clarify to see if I was seeing the numbers the way you were presenting the numbers on the success and the value of the aquatic center that we have now. So that's my point. Thanks.
thank you. And we're going to have another presentation, Mr. Webb, on the aquatic center specifically, so we'll definitely drill down on that. Any other public comment on this agenda item?
Good morning.
Good morning.
It still is morning. My name is James Mooney. I'm Palm Coast, Coventry Park.
Sir, would you mind just lifting the microphone up just a little bit? There we go.
How's that, better?
Better, yes, thank you.
Okay, James Mooney from Covington Park, over by the golf course, right next to it. I've been here for 18 months. My wife and I, we moved here about 18 months ago. Fled New York. We love the place. I just have a question. We moved here in 23. The golf course had resident cards. Didn't seem to have a problem with limiting them. This year, I went to go get a card. Oh no, we only gave out 200. And I find it strange that residences in Palm Coast paying taxes, only select few were allowed to get them. Now, you may look at it as they were able to get there first, but that shouldn't preclude other people paying taxes in here that are residents receiving the same benefit as their neighbor. So that's one of my comments. And I was just wondering, is the other part of the aquatic center and all these new projects, you said there's a usual shortfall annually on the golf course. Sometimes it's higher, but at the end, there's a shortfall. And of course, it seems like the aquatic center seems to have had a windfall. How much of the money of the golf course is being utilized for other parks and recreations? Are we retaining that money where it is? And are we keeping the limit of the amount of passes for the residents lower just to obtain more money to cover up that shortfall? And finally, I just wanted to comment on one thing that Mr. Ty Miller mentioned about counting cars. I'd just like to be careful about actually counting who's driving where, as opposed to just counting the actual car.
Understood, yeah.
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. And we also have a presentation specifically on the golf course coming up very shortly, so we'll drill down on some of that as well. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we will come back to the dais. Any response?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that that's not my intent at all. My intent is purely usage, and I know, well, it's been going that way for a long time, and it's not really, yeah. No, I got you. So yeah, that's not my intent is to see how it's being used so I can make it easier for you to get through a couple of lights rather than, sitting at lights while.
Well, I remember the old counters, the old air counters that they used to
Yeah.
But I can see AI like they do it down in Daytona. They want to find out how many people are actually visiting Daytona during the bike week. And they're actually counting cell phones. I'm not even sure how legal that is.
Yeah, I know some of that same data was when we did the joint city counties meeting in regards to the beach renourishment, and they're advocating for Palm Coast residents paying a share of that because they have data that says Palm Coast residents use the beaches, and they're using cell phones and saying, hey, these people are based in Palm Coast, but they're on our beaches, so they should pay their fair share. So I know some of that is used by government, and there's the third-party services, and I'm sure your cell phone companies, when you check the box that says I agree, it says they can sell your data to somebody else. So I have no doubt all of this is being used, and understood, though, that from my perspective, the intent is not to know anything about you. The intent is to know how many people are using that intersection at any one time so that we can make it work better for you. So I'm totally an advocate for privacy and not having your personal information out there in terms of government. The other thing I was going to mention was while the aquatic center is doing better than expected, I don't think it comes anywhere near cost recovery for the year. So while it's obviously an amenity and something that I think as a council we're focused on trying to find new versions of that, because quite frankly those facilities are old, and that's also including the school board's facility, which is the swim and racket club. They're very old, maintenance heavy in terms of cost and things like that. We need to do or get more facilities like that. We're a coastal community, we're Florida. There should be opportunities for people to swim in our community, to learn how to swim for our youth, for safety purposes, et cetera. So yeah, so that's a priority of ours.
Thank you. Any other comment? Okay. We'll move on to the next agenda item. We got Mr. Hurst here for item E3, Palm Harbor Golf Club.
Good morning, Vice Mayor and City Council. James Hurst, Director of Parks and Recreation. Today I'll be presenting a facility analysis on the Palm Harbor Golf Club. So from our previous meeting, staff went back. We had our meeting in January. Staff went back and did a few things to look at ways where we can make our golf course cost recovery per City Council's direction. So we looked at diversifying our revenue options. Staff went through and just not only looked at increasing rates, but looked at increasing other areas of the course. We also looked into a comparison of current maintenance versus bringing maintenance in-house. And then also at the end of our presentation, we have some budget projections from previous 5 years. Then we'll look into year-to-date, the rest of this year, and then next year as well. So here were some of the implemented changes we made straight away. So we increased our group rate from $43 to $46. In November of 2024, we increased our CPI rate, increased our rates by 3%, and that is our peak season rates.
James, just to go back, the 43 to 46 was from previous council's Yeah. Consensus on that?
It was, but it was something that we realized was kind of low too, so we wanted to increase.
Okay.
And then we looked to add 1 extra morning tea time, and then we also added 3 afternoon, evening tea times as well. With the morning tea times, we are restricted by the noise ordinance of 7 a.m., so we could only really add just the 1. And then starting April 1st, we implemented a credit card merchant processing fee, and that is a 3% charge to any credit card transactions, and that was also per council direction as well.
And so just for the public's information, prior, the city was paying the...
Correct, yes. Yeah.
The credit card processing fee, so now it's going to the users who use the facility.
Correct, yes. Then we have some upcoming changes. On May 1st of 2025, which is our summer rates, we'll increase our rates by 3%. Starting again on May 1st of 2025, we will increase our range tokens by $1. And then November 1st of 2025, we'll see another increase of 3% to our peak season rates. We are currently reviewing our pass holder membership. That was something that Kemper had prior to the city taking over, and this is something that we're reviewing. And then we're looking at increasing our handicap fee on January 1st of 2026 by $5.
Can you, since you mentioned the pass holder membership, can you touch on the public comment from earlier? And I know I've been reached out to by residents regarding the limit on pass holders.
Yeah, so we created a limit to the amount of pass holders we could take in. In essence, it does kind of harm our number of rounds that we can have. It decreases the rounds. So it is at a cheaper rate than what, say, someone would come in and pay. Say you came in and you were a non-resident, you wouldn't be able to pay the full $60 that morning rate would have. This would be at a cheaper rate. It's a good benefit for our residents and for people who are part of the golf course and who have been at the golf course for a number of years. But we just did cap it because ultimately it's harming our cost recovery projections. But we are looking at different options. We looked at many different courses. We're still kind of working things out. They don't really expire till December, so we have some time. But we're looking at maybe doing something more traditional membership. What that looks like, we're kind of working through that right now, yeah.
Have we found that sweet spot, though? I mean, do we know how many people we've turned down? I don't have that with me, but I'm not sure if we really... And I say sweet spot because I guess what I'm looking for is, I understand per direction of this council, we're trying to be cost recovery, which we should be on an amenity like this. But I also, the taxpayers are putting in towards the golf course at the same time. So, and then they're paying to go use the golf course, right? So I'm trying to figure out what that, and I know it's a newer concept that we're trying to, kind of tweak.
Yeah.
But have we looked into where we could still be cost recovery, even if we're satisfying the needs for the pass holders and that not
I think that's what
declining too
we've
many?
done pretty much across the board, just not with pass holder, but across the board as well. We realized that obviously our rates were low. We need to get them up because of inflation and things like that. But we're also trying to be conscious of users using the golf course as well. And this is, I think, looking at our changes that we're trying to implement, it's a mixture of trying to get us to cost recovery, but also trying to make that sweet spot of making sure we're not outpricing our residents or our taxpayers or anything like that. So that's really what we've been trying to do across the board as we looked at making some of these changes. Yeah.
So I'm assuming you guys aren't capturing that data, but I'd like to see if you can try to capture it in some way. How many people are asking for a pass that are basically being told no?
We may, at this moment, I just don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then, the other thing is what percentage of rounds are these pass holders?
Yeah.
I think that would be good information as well.
And again, I think we have that. I just don't have that with me. Yeah.
Could you just circulate all of that information to council after this meeting?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
So then we looked at our golf course maintenance. So we'll start with the right-hand square. So we looked at Troon Management. Troon Management is contracted through the city to do golf course maintenance. The staff structure is 9 full-time and 2 part-time staff. The current contract expires in 2027. And then with projected cost for 26, we're looking just over $457,000, which includes their management fee and their maintenance fees. Then, as we looked into city management of golf course maintenance operations, we looked at, I mentioned a little bit earlier, but we looked at different courses and what they do. We looked at some municipals, we looked at some privates. Most municipals we found were kind of contracted out like we are, kind of the same operational structure. Some private ones, they had some more full-time staff, some had less full-time staff. I think that really depended on what the course was, how the course was laid out, and kind of some of the challenges or what is located, some like trees and stuff located on their course. So we looked at ours, and we have quite a few oaks along our fairways and on our greens, which require a little bit more maintenance. So to kind of get to our, what we thought was our desired level of service, but also staying in within that cost recovery method, we came up with 7 full-time staff. If we looked at 9 full-time staff, kind of going with comparables with Troon and city management, and if we were to go 9, that's obviously just an increase of 2 full-time staff, but it would take us past that cost recovery. So for projected cost for 26, for 7 full-time staff, we had is $503,000, and then if we were to include another 2 staff or 2 groundskeepers, just at the minimum, that would be a total of $627,000 fully burdened.
Can you explain, James, what our management of the golf course currently looks like as far as front of house, greens?
Yeah, so Troon, they maintain our fairways, they maintain the roughs, they maintain, obviously, the greens, the bunkers, they do tree maintenance for us, they are in charge of the irrigation and pump stations that we have on the course and outside of the course. And then really it's just they spray, fertilize, they maintain the water hazards, they do ditch maintenance, and then they also, there's some vacant lots that are surround the course, and they also do some cutting back of those as well, just to make the course look nice and clean. So that's really kind of their level of service that they provide to our golf course, yeah.
And then front of house is maintained by City of Palm Coast Parks and Recreational staff, and then food and beverage is contracted out through Loopers.
Loopers, yes.
Okay.
Any more questions on the analysis?
So essentially what we're saying is that if we were to manage this maintenance cost ourselves, we are dropping the level of service in comparison to what our contracted company is, or what we've seen as a standard in other golf courses. We're dropping it to 7, and we're still more expensive.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then just, in the True Management, we have a deputy superintendent. I think he's been there for 30 plus years, I think, so he does know the course inside and out. And our superintendent, Roger Hale, he's great at what he does as well. So, so we kind of took that in consideration as well, just the knowledge of the course. So this slide was from our previous workshop in January. So this is just a capture of the 5-year budget review. So in 2020, 2021, we were at 99% cost recovery, mainly due to COVID lifting its restrictions, and then just nationwide, I think golf just spiked because it was outside, and we were lucky enough to kind of get that spike as well. Then we looked at 2021, 2022. The golf rounds remained high, so we were at cost recovery at 101%. And then 22, 23, we lowered down to 78%, and that's just really mainly due to our fleet replacement allocation and us just citywide catching up to payment of our maintenance equipment. So it just wasn't the golf course, it was all departments.
We purchased how many golf carts? that year? It was a lot.
It was quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think it was about 22, 23.
It's like 20 golf carts, right?
20 or
Yeah.
22 or 23 golf carts, I think, yeah.
So James, going forward, in terms of fleet related to the golf course, are we allocating budget, essentially saving for the future so that we don't get like a one-time hit here?
Yes, I think at this time, and the city manager might be able to help me out with some history, but at that time, I think we hadn't replaced our golf carts in quite a few years. And so if with the current fleet that we have, if we went out, we're on kind of a rotational basis, we are able to get some cost recovery back from those carts. And where before they were kind of old and they weren't really.
Yeah, to the point of it, so, and I mentioned this to city manager during our weekly meetings, but I want to make sure that cost recovery is actually cost recovery, and that we're running at 100% every year, but then once every 5 years, we got to drop 200 grand on golf courts or any specialty equipment that the golf course needs and things like that. I want us to be saving at cost recovery for that moment so that when it happens, we don't pay anything out of the general fund.
So it's not a snapshot in time, it's I agree.
Right, and that's understood. So all of that is captured in the budgeting process through the various funds that we do have. The exception to that is capital is not included in this budget. So when we talk about replacing the bunkers or the greens at the time whenever they're needed, it would come out of your CIP budget, not out of the golf-specific budget as of right now. So we just would need that further direction. If there's any cost savings in the future, that it would go to capital costs, just for consideration.
Yeah, and so I would advocate for that to be included as well, right? That this is a true cost recovery versus it's cost recovery for operations, but then every 4 years we've got to rebuild something or add, replace a maintenance shed or something like that, a water main, whatever the case may be, because then it's not really cost recovery, it's still costing us money.
Going back to servicing debt, right? Or, something we got to pay extra.
Yeah, so I guess what the overall question then is, in your projections on this slide and on the next slide, are these purely operational numbers?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, I agree. That's a really big problem because we know, particularly with a golf course, you're going to have larger price tag maintenance needs come up ever so often. And so if we're not putting money aside for these things, I agree with you. We could look great on the bottom line in years 1 through 4 and then, really eat it on year 5 because we have to invest in these capital projects and we're not allocating those monies along the way. So.
And that's good policy and direction, City Council. We have not had that previous City Council have considered the golf course an amenity, and it's been in our capital improvement program like other parks and facilities. So we will definitely take that policy direction and change course.
Just to follow up on that, there are companies that will sign you up for a lease on golf carts, and they automatically get replaced, and you pay a standard fee every year, so you don't have a burble, it stays the same all the time, and your golf carts are upgraded. I don't know if you looked at that, it may not be cost effective.
Mr. Sullivan, we typically do not enter into those lease agreements because our city charter prohibits those long-term leases, anything over 3 years. So, and a lease like that would be probably at least 5 years. So as an organization, we have not entered into those types of leases.
But.
It does establish a steady cost without a.
Correct,
Well, and we are per this council's direction, I think 3 weeks ago, we decided to start the charter review process. So that's something to consider, is the ability to enter into those contracts for that longer period of time, including leases. So it's still a good point to bring up. Yeah.
And it's been talked about, I think, a lot, and sometimes the point is missed, but we're limited in a very distinct way that other cities in our area are not, in terms of being able to sign contracts. And I understand that there's certain limitations that the charter was put in to limit debt and things like that. It's just difficult to do business as a city when you can't sign a contract for greater than 3 years. We can't essentially get the cost savings from a long-term contract because of that. And so it's definitely something that we should look at in terms of the review going forward because of that.
Madam Vice Mayor?
Yes.
James, thanks for, well, first, thanks to this council for agreeing to bring this topic back from the January workshop. And James, thanks for your efforts in trying to lay out all the cost recovery. You know, as I look at all the numbers, you know, fiscal year 21 and 22 is really kind of one of the few years that this golf course has made money. I still have my binder from January, which shows the financials back since 2008. I'm happy to pass it around, but it's lost from a strategic financial kind of business operations perspective. It's lost money, you know, every single year except one or two. And so, you know, what are we doing wrong from a cost recovery perspective? Is that enough? Do we need to look at other options? Let me ask you, what's the total acreage on the golf course?
I believe it's, don't quote me, about 147 acres, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. And then we absorb all the water, power costs, you know, based out of our
Can
utilities.
you repeat that one, sorry?
We absorb all the water, power costs.
Yes.
So that's not, is that captured in these numbers or no?
Yes, that's an operational
It's
expenditure.
yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right. Okay, I just want to say thanks for bringing this back and you know, leaning into the cost recovery. I'll save the rest of my comments for the end.
Thank you. And I think you have one more slide to get to, right, James?
Yeah, I was just, do you want me to go through this last slide? It's
Sure, yes,
just
please.
kind of our budget projections through our operations of this year and then next year as well. So currently, as of April 10th, we are at 101% cost recovery. Councilman Miller, you talked about kind of, you know, we're going into the slow season of the golf course, but as we looked at our rounds from 23 and 24 and our sales from there, we incorporated our changes that I talked about earlier to this revenue, and this is where we came up with total revenue of just over $1.8 million with our expenditures at 1.836. Last year we saved about $112,000 from our operating budget, and that was mainly through some salaries and wages. Our repair and maintenance was a little bit low, and then we had some other budget line items that were a little low. So we looked at kind of, we're projecting probably the same kind of savings as of last year, so that would get us to about 99.8% for this year. And then when we looked into next year, we have two columns here. One is for city maintenance and one is for keeping with Troon. Both are cost recovery. And then these revenue numbers do actually reflect, again, from 23-24 number of sales and rounds, but incorporating our changes that I mentioned earlier. And then when we looked at our expenditures, we kind of did a deep dive into our inside operational staffing. We noticed some areas that we could probably adjust, and then that kind of saved us a little bit of money as well. So that was all part of our kind of thinking when we looked at operations, and as I said, both of them were cost recovery at 103 and then 105%. And then with that, that is my last slide for today. So if there is any more questions or concerns, I can hopefully answer.
I have some. I'd like to just jump in where I left off. So big picture, right? And for those of you that are in the audience and those listening at home, I absolutely 100% agree that this property should and always remain a golf course, okay? It has a long history with our city, and I think it should be maintained. My question is, as we look at efficiencies, right? Mm-hmm. Cost savings and efficiencies, is it worth the time to take a look to see if a private entity would do a better job in running it? Providing the golf courses, or the golf carts that the gentleman brought up here earlier, things of that nature. It'll give us an immediate opportunity to potentially diversify the tax base because we could get business tax on 147 acres and charge water and property tax, everything else. But kind of a bigger, strategic thought is, and as we look at this, is it's such a beautiful property. It should be a destination location for folks to get off of the interstate or come through US 1 to be able to play golf there. And maybe there's an opportunity to take it to another level of an experience for those who love to play the sport of golf. And so, destination location. And so, as we look at this, I'm going to ask for consensus from my fellow members that, hey, let's take a look at an RFP to see what kind of bites we get at potentially looking at these options. I don't think it hurts to get to pursue an RFP. We could decide not to do anything at all. But as we look at options for efficiency, this may be a better bang for our buck down the road as long as we maintain it a golf course. And we've seen what that looks like if we shift the land use code for a golf course for other matters. So I just think we need to keep our options open, and I think it's an amazing property. It has long history with this city, and I think we could definitely maybe look at it as being a more enhanced experience and amenity for our residents.
And a revenue driver. I would go back to the original comments. We're talking about losing money over many, many years. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think cost recovery has been only a direction from any council recently. Is that correct?
Yes, within the last couple of years, it's come under some scrutiny. Previous city councils did not consider the golf course that way.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, hey, no one's blaming you. That wasn't what it was viewed as. It was viewed as a recreational facility that, as we all know, those things cost money, and they cost more money than they make in general. And so just wanted to point that out. The other thing is that certainly I think more information is better. I wouldn't be committing to necessarily going forward with anything, but I would like to see what the options are out there. I think it also presents, with what we're talking about in terms of including the capital improvement as part of cost recovery going forward as direction in the meantime, a challenge, right? Mm-hmm. To say, hey, we need to do it this way in order to not cost residents money. Otherwise, there may be another option. And so hopefully we take up that challenge and try to get us to a better spot financially that, we're running the golf course in a great way, but also not costing our residents excess money.
Thank you.
And
Councilman Sullivan?
I would just say that I see no problem in trying to take a look at options. The golf business is changing right now in the United States dramatically. There may be some ways that we can make it work. I also think that, so I think it's worth taking a look. I don't know much more about it than that. I've been aware, played that golf course many, many, many times over the years. We don't want to lose that golf course. We want it to have a golf course there for sure, but I think there may be some better options available now.
So, I echo the comments from my colleagues here. I think that it's time we do look at what an RFP, and I would like the RFP to come back before this council, before it goes out, if we can get consensus on that, okay. So my biggest concern with this is what Councilman Gambaro touched on, was that this must remain an operational golf course into perpetuity. Not a fairway, not conservation, but an operational golf course. I want to make sure that we keep the integrity of the intent of this property as much as possible. I have a really big issue with spending taxpayer dollars each year to undercut private business, which is why we decided in the last year or two to try to be cost recovery. I will tell you pretty candidly, disappointed that capital improvements were not included in that, because I don't think it really allowed us to fairly say we were cost recovery if we're not looking at capital improvements as a part of what that actual cost recovery looks like. So I don't know, quite candidly, how we continue on to be cost recovery without raising the rates a lot if we're going to include capital improvements and still maintain the level of service that our residents have come to enjoy on that golf course. So I think that if we want to make sure we're being fiscally conservative, which I think all of us have committed to being, and we want to continue to allow our residents to enjoy the golf course in the way that they've enjoyed it, we need to at least look at an RFP. Doesn't mean none of us are committing to it, right? But to your point, Councilman Miller, more information is always better. So I think you've got direction from this council to do that with the absolute non-negotiable term that this will remain an operational golf course for our community. So, any other comment? All right, public comment? Good morning.
Good morning. Janice Reed, Cypress Knoll Golf Course, Palm Coast resident. I have a couple of points I want to make. One is, since we're talking about the capital part of the golf course budget, if you look back over the history of the golf course, since Palm Coast has taken management of it, it's $9 million, if you include the capital expenditures that the city has lost. That's a lot of money. Private golf courses don't have that luxury of saying, oh, there's another fund out there that we spend to redo the bunkers or redo the greens. It's all part of our operating budgets. And it should be part of the operating budget of the golf course here. Second thing, I think there's clear confusion as to what a pass holder is. Because Palm Harbor Golf Course has 3 rates that they charge. The lowest of which is a Palm Coast resident rate. This pass holder was a get out of jail free card for anybody and anybody to get to pay lower than Palm Coast resident rates for unlimited golf, which is insane because the Palm Coast resident rate is already below market rate for any other golf course in the area. So why do we even have pass holders? I credit you for limiting them this year, but the program should be discontinued. It's not necessary. You're already giving Palm Coast residents a discount to play there. And my last point is that you can do a 3-year lease on golf carts. In fact, it's the most cost-efficient way to do leasing on golf carts, because after 3 years, the maintenance on a golf cart rises exponentially. And to say that you bought 20 golf carts in whatever year that was and spent $468,000 on them, I don't know what kind of gold-plated golf cart that is, because we bought 60 carts in the last 2 years and didn't spend $468,000 on them. So I think you really need to look at your numbers before you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comment?
Hi, Denise Henry, P section. I don't golf anymore. I used to golf. I was pretty good at it. But I don't see like a breakdown of revenue, so I don't know. So our pro shop, what kind of revenue do we even get from that? Is that an area that we can possibly lease out like we do the concession and handle it that way and not have our own staff handle it? Because I think the way it is now, our staff handles it. Of course, James will be able to answer that. So that's an area to look into, as it's not a lot of money, but, it can make a difference. And the only other thing, if our budget needs to be more, I think we need to make it a little bit more. So we aren't running in deficit, because we do have golfers in Palm Coast. And that's my only comments.
Thank you for your comment. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Kelly. I live across the street from the golf course, and I'm really happy to hear most of the council members here say that they want to keep the golf course in perpetuity. The traffic already on Clubhouse Drive in the almost 8 years I've lived here has increased substantially, that our economic development, from my perception, seems to be housing housing starts. And I fully advocate switching the direction of economic development to businesses that can provide jobs. That it's that the people who live in all these houses are going to need someplace to work. So that money should be allocated, switched immediately from housing to providing jobs for the community. The traffic on Clubhouse Drive, getting back to the golf course, the traffic on Clubhouse Drive, as I said, has increased dramatically, and along with it, the speed of the vehicles that are using it. So I would like to ask council to perhaps observe this, to do make some kind of measures to bring the speeds of the traffic on that road, which is now used as a cut through, lower the speeds on that road. So I'm happy about the golf course, and I really do strongly suggest that any RFP you put out, which I'm not sure, I'm not clear on what that RFP would be. Is it to sell the golf course and have the future owner run the golf course, have it be maintained as a golf course? Or would it be an RFP to manage the golf course? That I didn't get clear. And finally, I had a question at the very beginning of James's presentation, which I do love your socks. At the very beginning of the presentation, he had an expense for Troon management that somehow from what it costs to pay them, $457,000, it jumped to, at the end of the show, for the costs to be in the neighborhood of 1.7. So I'm a little unclear as to, what happens in between those two figures. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
My name is Steve Evans. I'm a resident of Palm Coast. I'm honored to get a chance to speak to you today. I play golf at Palm Harbor twice a week, and I practice a couple times a week. I have a degree in golf course management from the Institute of Applied Agriculture at the University of Maryland. I'm a former golf course superintendent with 18 years in the golf course maintenance industry. Why did you not break out the cost of the inside versus the cost of the outside? You talked about maintenance, but you didn't talk about what the pro shop does. I have limited experience and knowledge of Bermuda grass because I was a golf course superintendent in Maryland. I did work at I did work down at LPGA for a couple of years when I first got down here. I've worked at limited budget golf courses. The lessons I learned there was you can't do more with less. You can't grow grass in the shade. I've never worked anywhere where the golf course didn't have experienced golf course management people running the show. You need to have professionals that know how to complete the cultural practices that provide quality turf for a product of value to our customers. And I don't know why I'm communication is required in all successful operations. How many times have you all been down and talked to Roger Hill? How many times do you go to the golf course and see what's going on? How do you know what Troon's doing? What is Troon actually doing? Having a city run a golf course is a very difficult thing because the city doesn't have experienced golf course management skills. The easy way is to hire a management company, but that way the only person that's making any money is the management company. You can have a golf course without a pro, but you can't have a golf course without a superintendent and a mechanic. From what I observed, the pro shop end of the operation, shit.
If you could wrap up your comments,
Can
sir.
I continue?
Just for 5 more seconds. Wrap it up, please.
The pro shop end of the operation is dedicated to offering pleasant, professional service to the customers. And that is from the golf cart staff to the inside employees. They're all friendly and accommodating. Roger Hare operates on a limited budget.
Sir, if you could wrap up your comment for me, okay? If you could wrap up your comment for me, please.
I'm sorry.
Just wrap up your comment. You're out of time.
Why did you not get Roger the pump? Why did you take so long to to get that? Why did you put a bridge in that the only golf carts can go over? It's insane to not be able to have a bridge that the facilities go over.
I'll tell you what, sir, what we're going to do, if you could, sir, if you could, we've got comment cards. If you could write down the remaining issues, and we will definitely have staff get back to you on all those issues, okay? We just have to move on with the meeting.
One more thing, real quick. The place I worked at had vision statements and mission statements dedicated to provide services, products, and opportunities of value that offer enrichment to the community. And I agree that we don't honor that golf course and its history. There should be a statue of Nancy down there. Thank you very much, and I will fill out that card.
Thank you. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you
And
for
I
your
will be
comment.
talking to you.
Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time.
I'm back. James Mooney, Palm Coast. Okay. I think the higher cost that the young lady was talking about, I don't know if that has anything to do with the Milton storm, because I know that that golf course took a beating from that storm and a lot of stuff went down. The second thing is the course itself, as this gentleman just alluded to, is in pretty rough shape. It's probably one of the worst shaped golf courses I've ever played on, and I've only played on it 3 times. Other thing I'd like to say, if this is going to go to a private management, I agree with the other young lady over there who mentioned that just handing this golf course over to a private company and then watching it turn into a development of condos in 5 years is probably not a prudent way to process this. I think that it needs to be managed or oversight by the city council through a private vendor. That's fine, but as long as the management or the oversight is, steadfastly looked at and not just let to go run, because from what I understand, this golf course has been overseen by private entities before, and it's gone to crap, and ultimately had to be taken over by the city again because it wasn't being monitored, it wasn't being overlooked, management was not doing it. I guess I get my point across. I am a little disappointed at James here, though. You asked him a simple question. What's the acreage? He's managing this course. He doesn't even know the acreage. That's kind of disappointing. And if you see that golf course, and the way it's looking...
If you could direct your comment to
I'm
City
sorry.
Council, please. Thank you.
If you see that golf course, the way it's managed, this Toon agency that's handling it, somebody needs to look into this agency because I don't think they know how to run or manage a golf course or the agricultural part of it. I end.
Thank you for your
Have a
comment,
good
sir.
day. Bye, all.
Yes, sir, Mr. Fuller.
Ed Fuller, Honorable City Council. I can only give you an anecdotal account of my experience at the golf course. First of all, we made a reservation, and we got off on time. Unfortunately, there was only 2 of us, so we met 2 other gentlemen, and they were outstanding. They were from Minneapolis, Minnesota, so they weren't residents here. And I'll tell you, during the course of a golf game, they played golf, I played at it. That's all I can say. They commented on how tranquil the place was, how nice it was, and they were going to invest in our community. You know what they were going to do? They were going to buy some homes here. That's their experience. It's an economic driver. And the more successful, more people play that golf, the more wear and tear you're going to have on the golf course, correct? Any more wear and tear, your costs are going to go up. Now, these 2 gentlemen from Minnesota, I could tell they weren't that good in golfing because I came close to beating them, but thank God I had my son and he saved our bacon during the thing. But the most important thing is the experience they had. I wish I could have recorded them or asked their permission to record them, what they thought about our community, what they thought about our golf course, what about the friendliness of everybody there. It's amazing. The one fellow said, well, maybe, Ed, maybe you should pay more because you destructive strokes on the golf course, you're a hazard to the golf course. So maybe I'll probably have a $10 fee more for the divots I took. But it is an economic driver. It is. 55,000 people, I think, rounds of golf might have been played. Do the math. We only have 107,000 people, right? Okay, that's pretty good. It's an amenity, and it should be looked at. But, you know, you're defined on what you do for experiences, correct? And people pay for experiences. And it was a really pleasant experience. Obviously, we met 2 people and gentlemen, they're going to come here. Why? They play golf. They don't play it often, but they're going to start playing often. So because of that golf course, believe it or not, they're going to come relocate here because it's close. Just like you talked about, Councilman Gambaro, it's a destination place. It is. Every one of our amenities are. And I want to commend everybody. It's really a cool experience. Other than, please, when I go next time, I hope it'll be in the dark, so when I lose all the balls, people don't laugh too hard, I guess. But thank you for all your efforts. Thank you, council, for taking a look at this thing. But, it's good, it can be better, and it's probably going to be one of the best things around here. I can tell you that much, because all the effort over there, just look at it. And one thing you can't count on over there is this destructive hurricane damage that's always coming here in our way. So thank you very much, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, sir.
My name's Steve Tress. I'm a resident of Palm Coast, and I agree wholeheartedly with that gentleman's assessment. It's a wonderful treasure, this golf course. It is. I run a small group of about 25 players. We play there every week. And a lot of these folks are from out of town, Chicago, you name it. A lot of them are snowbirds, but they absolutely, of all the courses around, love that course. But it needs help. If you drive by the course today, it's brown because our pumps aren't working properly. They're not watering properly because the pumps aren't. That's no way to run a business. It could be the absolute best course in all of Palm Coast, and I'm talking about Hammock Dunes, but it does require money and attention. And to have pumps that aren't working properly are burning out the course. My drives are better than ever because it's so hard. I can run it for 150 yards and get it about that high off the ground. So that's all I wanted to say. But please keep this golf course, whatever you do. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Mark Gregoire. I'm a Palm Coast resident for 17 years. It seems like all the important decisions about the golf course are being made by the city manager and the city council. And the people that are running the golf course don't have the authority to do and make changes that need to be made. which is a terrible business model. All right? I'd rather see the city council set some decent operating parameters and spend their time removing the barriers to good golf course operation, like giving them an exemption on the noise ordinance so they can start earlier and sell earlier rounds and take full use of the golf course. Rather than deciding at the city council level what constitutes a league and who can do what on which days of the week, the people that are running the golf course should be able to make those decisions. And the city council should be able to spend their time doing more important things like worrying about utilities and waste management issues. Set some decent operating parameters and then hold them accountable for meeting those parameters. We've heard plenty of talk in the last city council workshop about how Palm Harbor is undercutting their competition, but it seems like their competition finds out what Palm Harbor's new rates are, immediately jacks their rates up a few dollars higher, and then complains that they're being undercut. So I think the people that are competing against Palm Harbor and they want to gain an advantage, they want the golf course to go away, or they want all the prices to rise so they can make more money, they're not speaking for the general public. They're speaking for their personal pocketbook. When it comes to golfers that are trying to decide where they're going to play a round of golf, price is usually not their primary concern. They're more interested in the design of the course, the quality of the practice facility, what kind of conditions exist on the course, how nice the people are that work at the course and take care of them. Price is not their primary concern. If you look at all those things that golfers really look at, the Palm Harbor Golf Course is far and away the best golf course in town. And it deserves more respect, I think, from the city council. Finally, I think you should realize that golf is a sport that requires participants to have disposable income that they inject into the local economy. The city council should be trying to figure out how we get more golfers into town so they can take advantage of these golf courses. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Good morning.
Hello, Richard's my name. I've been a resident of Palm Coast for 24 years, and I always said, another day in paradise. Well, what's happening now is paradise, everybody wants to move to paradise, and we're getting overcrowded, and it's going to be a metropolis before you know it. Palm Harbor Golf Course, they're looking for more revenue. The person that brought up the ordinance to stop the noise in the morning has now moved away. He moved away 3 years ago. And if they're worried about noise in the morning, all they got to do is buy an electric mower to mow the greens. Not a gas job, but an electric mower. And like I said, I used to play Palm Harbor 4 days a week. Well, I'm getting old now, so I only can play it 3 days a week. But it's a gym. I have people come up from Miami, Fort Lauderdale. They used to go down there in November and play with a bunch of guys. They came up here, they couldn't believe the course and the price. Unbelievable. The other thing is, you subsidize the other golf courses here by raising our rates. All you're doing is subsidizing them. Whatever happened to competition? That's what made America great, competition. Not raise the rate to appease them people. Oh, they might go out of business. If they do, somebody else will come and buy it. That's what they did. They bought the same thing. But we have a gem of a golf course. You should be proud of it, really proud of it. And that's my only point. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Tom Woods. I just have a couple brief points. I agree that this golf course is an absolute gem. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of property. It's a wonderful asset for this community. The whole cost recovery concept, I think you're going down the wrong path. You need to generate revenue, and you actually need to increase cost. Unfortunately, the golf course, this beautiful piece of property, is in very bad shape. And it's because it's not been properly invested in. So forget about the cost recovery. Generate your revenue and enhance the experience.
Thank you, sir, for your comment. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the dais. Any responses to the public comment?
James, I think there was one question about the difference in cost. My understanding is that maintenance contract is just a portion of our overall costs, so that's why there's a difference there. So I'm not sure if you can elaborate into what is in the Troon contract versus what other costs are associated with their operational costs.
Yeah, as you said, Councilman, it is one part of our overall operations budget. It's within an item of our contractual services, and then we have other expenditures on top of that contract as well.
And then just to reiterate what I think we all said prior, is that there's no intent here for it to never to ever be anything other than an operating golf course. So I would not be in favor of moving forward with anything if that contingency isn't legally taken care of in the wording of the language of the contract or the sale documents or however we have to do it. But the goal here is to just find and make it a better golf course, whether it's internally or externally, whatever the case may be. And so it's not that. And then additionally, for everybody saying, hey, you should be proud of the golf course we have. We are, absolutely. And we understand that it's a community amenity, and we're just trying to get it in a better spot than it is right now.
Yeah. I'll go down to other councilmen. Any other comment or questions?
No more.
Okay, thank you. So I will tell you, the slippery slope I don't want to see us go down is now all of a sudden we are trying to sell other amenities in order to be, quote, cost recovery. I think the difference between the golf course and some of our other facilities like Southern Rec Center is that there are other private golf courses in the community. There is no other Southern Rec Center, right? There's no other amenities like this that are being provided by private companies, by private individuals, trails, things like that. Obviously, only the city can provide those things in the county. So I just don't want us to go down this path of, oh, well, now we have to find somebody to purchase the Southern Rec Center. And I don't feel like that's where we're going, but I just want to be very clear that that should be the line in the sand, that this is not a policy for all of our amenities. This is a policy that we may be going down just for the golf course because to many people's points, this is going to take quite a bit of investment to bring back up to the standards that we want it to be at. And when we say investment, we mean taxpayer dollars. And so unless we are going to raise those rates by quite a bit, which we decided as council last year and the year before, we wanted to do a small increase, but not a very large increase. And it sounds like we would have to do a pretty significant increase if we were going to invest in the way that it sounds like it needs. So I don't know, council would obviously put the RFP and the contracts together. I don't know what mechanisms we could put in to protect this golf course to make sure it is being operated as a golf course, but into perpetuity is definitely something that I know we can do. So again, I think that just let's put it out there and see what bites. But it seems like you had another comment, Councilman.
I was just going to say, I've always been advocating that this golf course as a recreational amenity is different than all of our other ones because of those same reasons you just said.
So just to clarify, the RFP will come back to you at a future workshop to review before it is sent out to the public. And then would you like for us to go ahead and do an appraisal of the property so you have that as consideration as well?
I think we would need one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to spend some money on this, so just making sure we're authorizing those expenditures to conduct your direction.
Well, city manager, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have the autonomy up to 50,000.
Yes.
So I would say let's.
I I don't
wanna put out an
foresee it, I
RFP.
don't foresee it going to that,
It
but,
shouldn't be even close to that, but
okay. So we're going to go ahead with an appraisal and go ahead with an RFP for the sale of the golf course and have in the language that it be conditional to continue to be an operational golf course.
correct. And
Okay,
the
thank you.
A covenant.
How does that, just for city attorney, in terms of that, is the language, is it, it has to maintain this status or it reverts back to the city or something like that? How does that language work?
That's something we can look at, and I can get further direction, but it would be, like you guys already discussed, in the covenant that would run with the land, that it has to be an operational golf course.
Yeah.
Now, the problem that we would most likely run into, and it's probably the same problem you guys ran into before, is where the golf course was not being run properly and the city took it back. That could be an issue that you could possibly run into, but if we put it as it has to stay as a golf course and nothing else, that's very simple. What might make a little harder saying, what if the golf course goes bankrupt, or if the people walk away? That's an issue that I don't know if we can ever avoid, but I can research further down.
Can we pass an ordinance to state that fact?
I would have to research more. I don't want to give you an answer off the
I
cuff.
think one of the things, like ownership reverts back to the city if they.
And that's something we could look at. Ms. Vice Mayor, were you going to add anything?
No, I was just going to say, I think the difference between what we're looking at now versus when we had somebody managing the golf course is if a private entity comes in, they obviously have some stake in the game to make it successful because they're trying to run it as a business. So it's very different, I feel, than a management company coming in and managing it where we still own it because it's ultimately our losses rather than theirs. So I think that's quite different. But yeah, I would agree. I think we need an appraisal in order to obviously make sure we know what we're looking at. So any other comments to give to staff or direction? Okay.
Thank you for the discussion. Thank you, James.
Thank you very much. And I think the next presentation
yep.
is the Aquatic Center. And then do we want to take a small break after that? Okay, let's do that. So we'll do Aquatic Center, James. The next item on the agenda is E4, and then we'll take a small break after that.
DoorDash something.
No, we're gonna do this one. No, we're gonna do this presentation and then take a break. Not yet.
Give it a couple more seconds to let a few more people exit, and then you can go forward, James.
Yep.
Okay, please proceed.
Well, good morning, Vice Mayor and City Council. We have two presentations for this one agenda item. We'll start with the Palm Coast Family YMCA. We have John Walsh, and then we have Chris Selkop. They'll be presenting on the YMCA, and then I have a presentation next just to kind of overview of our operations at the Palm Coast Aquatic Center. So, John.
Thank you, James. My name's John Walsh, a resident of Palm Coast since 1990. Currently serving on the board of the Volusia Flagler YMCA. I'm here with fellow board members Susan and Tony Trembley, residents of the Hammock and longtime YMCA supporters. They brought that passion with them when they moved to town. Also, board member, chairman of the board, Troy Railsback, chairman of the Volusia Flagler YMCA board, and fellow board member Jeff Douglas, Palm Coast resident, community investor. The YMCA has had history here in Palm Coast. Not sure if everybody will remember the very first YMCA was located at the ITT Welcome Center, right? And it was brought to town from ITT as an amenity, and it was the only YMCA in the history of the Y that was opened by the Y Corporation and not from the community within. The second YMCA here in town was located at the Florida Hospital Flagler. We had some space in the front of their new facility that operated from 2002 to 2011. And there were a couple of factors why that YMCA closed. One was the healthcare needs of our community grew. The hospital needed the space, but also reality was the YMCA was operating at a loss. Both of the previous facilities did not include an aquatic center, which is what we do best. In 2019, I met Chris Silcop. Chris came back to the Volusia Flagler YMCA, this time as executive director. Jeff Douglas and I met with Chris, invited him to Palm Coast to talk about opening a YMCA here in Palm Coast. It was a great meeting, learned a lot about some of the challenges they faced, but what Chris said at that point was, thanks but no thanks. He was hired as the new executive director to turn the region around. Chris has done a fabulous job. We went from hemorrhaging money every year to creating a pretty healthy financial statement and a positive operating budget. Chris is going to talk about, first off, thank you for having us and having this dialogue. But what Chris is going to talk about is the possibility of the YMCA coming to town and providing short-term cost savings to the city in operating its current aquatic center, but also long-term by eliminating the liability of maintenance, rebuilding, and continuation of operating the aquatic center. It's my privilege to introduce Chris Silcop as our executive director, and like to always point out that Chris is also a Paralympian. Chris, you're on.
Thank you very much. Welcome, and council members, thank you for what you do for the community. Volunteering your time, take a day out to serve your communities, as I respect that a great deal sitting in the audience. Yeah, Chris Silcop, born and raised actually in DeLand, Florida. So from the area, went to high school in Daytona Beach and DeLand, and then worked on the Y for 30 years plus. I know what you're thinking, how's that possible? I started when I was like 5, but I left Florida to be a CEO in Texas, Victoria, Texas, south of Houston, between Corpus, and did a lot of the same things that we're going to talk about. So we had a partnership with the city there where their aquatic facility was failing, and they partnered with us to build a new one on the YMCA property. And we also outsourced, well, we also ran 4 other aquatic facilities in towns around South Texas because they knew that was in our wheelhouse. We could do better and more efficient than how they could do it. So to give you a little background about my experience, what I'm bringing to the table. I've built 3 YMCAs. I've renovated about 10 YMCAs, so I have quite a bit of that knowledge of dealing with architects and engineers and planning. So, to tell you about our plans for the Palm Coast YMCA. Yes, we were here. In fact, I was the COO who closed down the Y in the hospital because our lease ran out, so I understand the history of the area, but we did try to do some community programs until we left. But currently, we have 6 facilities in our system. 1 residence camp, Camp Winona. It's actually the oldest camp, YMCA camp in the U.S., started in 1920. And so we have a very broad range in a lot of different communities, a lot of different financial deals. We have some cities, Edgewater, Port Orange, Holly Hill, where it's city facilities, and the YMCA comes in and runs all the rec programs. You have some facilities like Deltona, Camp Winona, where we own the land and the property. Then we have DeLand, where the city owns the airport, the property, and the Y owns the building on top. So we have a lot of different business models that we have integrated to make work to better the community. Next slide, thanks. So here's real quick, our budget. When I got here, the budget was about $9 million, so we've grown about 30% to $12.9 million without adding any facilities. Total assets, $19 million. Net assets, $13 million. Members, 37,000. When I got here, we had about 16,000 members, and then program participants, about 50,000. One stat you don't see, and I neglected to put it in there, is the YMCA doesn't turn anyone away for inability to pay. But you have to pay something. It could be $5, $10, but you have to be invested. So last year, our association gave out excess of $600,000 to the community for programming, after-school care, summer camp, swim lessons, youth sports, membership, whole variety of things. So when you come, you have to prove the need, but we never turn anybody away, ever. So here's a few of our community partners we currently have. We have a strong relationship with Halifax Health in Volusia County. University of Florida Health, Those two actually groups have just recently sponsored a soccer complex we have in Deltona with an artificial turf field. Brooks Rehab, the school board, again, great relationship with them. We have a number of the swim teams swim at our YMCA's. After school care, they bring kids to the YMCA. Halifax Academy, DeLand Powell, we have a great relationship with in DeLand where they do programming, weightlifting, basketball within the YMCA walls and other things like that. Boys and Girls Club, great relationship with them also in Holiday Hill. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, I can go on, but that gives you the breadth of partnerships we already created in Volusia County. We're looking to do the same as partner here, because my job is to create win-win-wins. Wins for the community, wins for the YMCA, and wins for the cities that we were in. So if we can get that done, then we've created success, and that's one way we do it. Programming. So what does the Y bring? And I've said to the very beginning, and I've sat in a number of community sessions that I've been invited to hear from participants who do programming already in your community. And I'm not here to take programming over. I'm here to fill in the gaps. So the Y comes in and figures out what does the community need, and we try to fill in the gaps. So we have a saying in the YMCA, when you've seen one YMCA, you've seen one YMCA, because every Y is designed around the needs of that community, from programming to facility needs to anything. So here's some of the things that we do currently: youth volleyball, basketball, school care. New Worlds Reading is actually a great program that you're running up here at Fire Rim, I think it is, at the elementary school, Rimfire.
Rimfire, and they just did one at Buddy Taylor.
Yep. So that's a new thing. It's a partnership with the University of Florida for youth reading. Y Reads, another program funded by the state for after-school reading programs. Teen Achievers. Live Strong is a cancer recovery program we have at the Port Orange YMCA. Sports conditioning, wellness seminars, we put those on in partnership with local health experts who come in. Performing arts, we have travel. We have actually the largest volleyball travel program called RISE. We have 16 teams in our system. I'm a Paralympic volleyball player, so I kind of did that. I sit on the board for USA Volleyball, so it's kind of one of my things. Group exercise, martial arts, parents' night out. So the big thing we have when you have to go Christmas shopping, you gotta have the kids go someplace, so we always have parent night out during Christmas time, so the parents have someplace to put their kids safely while they go take care of some of the shopping. And Healthy Kids Day. Actually, this weekend is Healthy Kids Day nationwide for us. Is going to be going on at many of our YMCA's where we have a kids triathlon going on in Edgewater. We have other programming going on other branches just to bring kids and kind of promote kids being active. Aquatics, so that's a big thing. So the two things that I've learned in this community sitting in the focus groups, one is aquatics, the other one's not up here, is your indoor space for youth activities. You guys need a gym in the worst way. And what I explained to some of the area organizers who are complaining about gym access, the school board, that's not their wheelhouse. That's not their job is to provide gyms. Their job is to educate kids, not to provide gym for Saturday morning basketball. And you have a huge need in this community for that. The other part of it, and I don't get too much about it because that's kind of my area of expertise, is aquatics. You have a huge need for aquatics, and that's what we do. We have 7 pools currently under our system. 2 are Olympic-sized pools. And we know how to run pools because we have a business model built on keeping the pool in the black. And it's a very hard thing to do. I know I've seen your finances and how much money you're losing right now on your Frida Zambra pool. Our business model is built on keeping pools open, keeping pools running, keeping pools sustainable, and that's what we do. So what do we do individually with the pools? Swim lessons, group adult swim lessons, water safety classes for schools. So we actually bring schools into the YMCA. We bus them in for water safety classes. We have scuba classes, aquarobics. We have our own swim league internally. We have a travel swim club, lap swim, water aerobics, high school swim teams, and swim meets, district, what have you. You have a unique, and I've studied the needs of your community, and it's a very unique need. You have a unique need for water aerobics for seniors and adults, lap swim, swim lessons, swim teams, synchronized swimming, and all those, and then families, that all those require a different aquatic component. They are depending on depth of the pool, length of the pool, slant of the pool, it's all different. So trying to get all those and satisfy those all into one swoop is possible, And I found a model locally where I have designed the pool after that model that will fit all the needs that this community has. Next picture, please.
I have a question, sorry,
yes,
on that
go
last
ahead.
one. Is there an intent to include a diving ability as well?
No.
Okay.
No, there is not. We do have a diving well on the land, and it is used very sparingly, and it's low. So we just have a high, and the insurance companies got in. We actually had an accident years ago, and I actually pulled the kid out of the pool that fell off the high dive and landed on the scum gutter in the side and cracked his head. So since that, they've removed all the high dives out of YMCA's in our association. We have a low dive on a 13-foot well in DeLand, but it's not practical, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So building, so facility assets. So we're looking at building about a 44,000 square foot building. This, again, I have to get into the value engineering of it. That's one of my expertise, is value engineering of construction. When we got with the architect, he designed what he saw, and we haven't dove into that yet. But here are some of the things we're looking at. Wellness center, again, sports gym, one of the mistakes that a lot of Ys make, they build a square sports gym. No, it's rectangle. You can fit 3 courts in, we can fit 2 if you make it rectangle instead of square. It's one of the things I've learned. Again, it's my background. Zero entry pool, youth locker rooms, child care rooms, group exercise, and spin rooms. So you add all that up, it's a little bit less because you have the lobby and you have hallways in there, but it's about 44,000 square feet. And that's the average size of our YMCA's in our association. We have some Ys that are about 35,000, some Ys that are 55,000. 44 is about your sweet spot, where you want to get to out of the gates. And when we first talked about this, we discussed doing it in phases, but as we saw the need, and again, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I can say I've opened 4 Ys in new communities. This is by far the most energetic community I have seen in wanting a YMCA. The zeal is very refreshing, to be honest with you. And so our feeling is, as soon as we build this, it's going to be too small in 2 years. We're going to hit 6,000 members easily, which is about the size of the Ormond Y, because we've done the market study, and we've seen it. So here's a real quick snapshot of the property.
Sir, sorry, go ahead.
When you say Olympic-sized pool, you're talking 25 meters or 50?
50.
Okay.
So you're looking at crossways, 18 to 21 lanes, and I'll get into the pool specs more detail, but it'll have a movable bulkhead. So you can have multiple events and multiple activities in there at one time. The same pool that I'm looking at is built currently by Orlando Health at the OTC. It's at the training center, National Training Center in Claremont. So I went there, I looked at it, and I asked them, okay, if you could build it different, what would you do? And they gave me some notes and some pointers. But yeah, in our current lanes, so Ormond has 21 lanes, Port Orange has 18 lanes. So because it's zero entry, that's why there's a variable of how many we're going to have. But the pool's already built. We just have to kind of massage it for the best needs for this community. So here's real quick a site plan that I drew up of the property and where it's going. And that's about 44,000. Different boxes are different activities that you see. So we kind of laid it out. Again, it's kind of how I would do it based on the rectangle shape of the property. Next slide, please. So this gives you a better idea. So this is the pool from the top down, the property. The pool, as you can see, it's zero entry on the left side. So we would have some family features, some squirters coming out of the ground, the mushroom, the dumping buckets, things that attract the families for the ages 5 years and younger. Then as it slopes down, you'd have a transition spot there where you do water rehab, which is what Orlando Health does at their facility in Claremont, which I've talked to Advent Health about that possibility. They're very excited about it. Then you have your lanes, which you could move either in your yards or your meters, either way. Normally, we would do short course. I know Ormond Beach and Port Orange, we do long course for about 1 or 2 months out of the year. And then at the far end, you'd make it about 8 feet deep. So you need 8.5 feet is the minimum for synchronized swimming, which is a program that the school board has here. So right now, they travel all the way down to Orlando, from what I'm told. And I've offered them the DeLand facility to use for free. So they have to drive. But we'd make the end part 8.5 feet. So we would slope the pool down so your water aerobics would have the 4 feet depth and they'd be in the sweet spot there, and they have enough room. Then you have your lap swimming, and as you go down farther, it'd get deeper to 8.5 feet for your water aerobics. And you'd have your movable, probably 2 movable bulkheads, what they call it. So you could have different activities going on at the same time in the pool. Questions? I see some faces. No, we're good? All right. So so I've tried to design the pool around the needs that I've heard from the community. The lap swimmers, the water aerobics, the synchronized swimming, your high school swim teams, which be able to house both of them, your swim meets, your swim lessons, and then also your families. All right, so this is a rendering. Again, it has to be value engineered, but this is the rendering. It looks really good. It actually looks a lot like the DeLand YMCA, pure coincidence, because when I design Ys, I have a lot of glass. I want to open, I want to look good, look like it's biting. One reason John talked about the turnaround financially of our YMCA is because we have renovated all of our facilities, besides one, Port Orange, and that one gets done soon because I had to renegotiate the lease for the city. That's a whole other story. But all of our Ys are doing much better because they all look first class and they all look the same interiorly when you walk in. It's a consistent look across the whole association. And we've reinvested in our facilities, reinvested in our programming. This is a pretty good looking facility, I think. Don't know how I'm going to clear out all those windows, but it's a good looking facility. And we think it's doable. So, and that's just a quick look at the pool. Again, from the back of it. And that's it. Now, the other part of it we want to talk about is your current facilities. I know Frida Zamba is one of them. We've done a financial analysis on that, and I'd like the approval of the commission to continue to talk to staff, because we think we can save you some money. You talk about, recovering costs. We think we can do it more efficiently and provide the same services, if not more, because we could sell memberships that would incorporate the Ormond Y for people who use the Frida Zamba pool. That's one way we would generate more revenue. And that's how we cover our costs, is selling memberships of our YMCAs. It offsets the $500,000 to $1 million you're going to lose a year operating a Olympic-sized pool. So I talked to Jason Dorenzo, and I think it's something that we can create, again, another win-win, where we can provide additional services to the community, save the community and city money you can reallocate to other purposes. And that's the first ask. The second ask is for $3 million. We figured this is going to cost about $16 million, $3 million, and again, that's money that, looking at your budget, you'd recoup after 6 years from the cost that you're spending right now on your current quad complex. And then after 6 years, you wouldn't have any additional costs. We would take care of all the remarsiting. To give you an idea, I spent $300,000 remarsiting 2 pools in DeLand and Deltona this past year. Pool pumps, pool heaters, any capital costs would all be on the YMCA. So the city would get a first-class facility and not have to worry about the economic headache down the road as it ages.
All right, thank you so much for that presentation. Thank you for being here. I will open it up to my council members for comments, and then I have some questions as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, a great alternative in terms of offloading some of that cost, but still having the amenities available in a new modern facility rather than an aging one that we struggle to maintain. I mentioned the $3 million. Has there, obviously, and during your presentation, you mentioned things like high school swim teams and programs from school board. Has there been any contact with school board in terms of trying to get them to participate in, kind of this cost sharing? I don't think, if there's other parties benefiting from it as well, I think it's important to make sure that they are participating in this and putting some skin in the game, so to speak, because right now we don't really have a true facility for high school athletics in terms of aquatics.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, construction costs, 300, 350 square foot. Now, no organization can build something, especially a nonprofit, a 501c3 like the YMCA by themselves. So we have to bring community partners to the table. And we're trying to find as many community partners as we can under roof. And yes, the school board we have talked to, and yes, they are supportive to an amount from the staff, but we have to go to their school board for approval. But the staff have verbally said, yes, this is the best way to go for them also for future, for their high school teams.
Good, yeah, just want to make sure we're collaborating with them and ultimately, hopefully, sharing some of that cost that all of us were going to benefit from, not just the residents of Palm Coast, but the schools as well, so.
Councilman Gambaro?
Yes. Chris, thanks for your presentation. It's an exciting opportunity, I think, for the city to certainly, tackle the needs of our residents, and it's certainly a legislative priority for us that we certainly continue to advocate for funding, from the state legislature. I was just passing around to my fellow council members, and thanks to Helena again, she gave me the financials for all of our amenities, and one of them is the aquatic center. And last year alone, we lost, over $362,000 just from trying to run the pool. So what you're proposing is, and I'll put it in military terms, we're going to take care of, you're proposing a solution for current ops based on what we already spend on the Frida Zambo pool, and get that thing operating with the potential investment into the future of this incredible facility that, based on, the rest of the YMCAs within your organization have a fantastic track record. And so to my fellow council members, I truly think this is a win-win. What kind of investment are you looking for? Let's just.
$3 million is what we're looking for from the city. Again, the YMCA is bringing money to the table. We're not coming here hat in hand. We already have $2 million in the bank currently. And then we actually, today at noon, I was supposed to be at a corporate board meeting where we're going to approve a fundraising council to start fundraising in the area for this project. So we plan to raise a few million more dollars. So our investment in here is significant. We believe in it. We have now the financial balance sheet. If we have to leverage, we can. I would rather not do that, because the more you do that, the less investment you can have in your community from a programming standpoint. But our corporate board is committed to this project. So we're looking, again, total cost about $16 million. We're asking for $3 million from the city.
Okay, and every community partner would have skin in the game as far as the revenue piece. So
that would be my question to piggyback. The 3 is specifically from us.
Correct.
If you were to get some from the school board, it would be not part of that 3.
Correct. It'd be an additional to that 3.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And what Chris is proposing is running Frida Zamba.
Right. Yeah. So if it were cost recovery, essentially, we're
right. So we're taking care of current ops and future ops at the same time.
No, and I appreciate that commitment to try to bridge that gap for us. While obviously it takes time for these capital improvement projects, but certainly any improvements we can make in our operations during that time so that we can get there for the grand opening,
right.
so to speak.
It was stressed to me, it's very important. I agree from the school board staff and from city staff that there's no discontinuation in services.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So it'd be one fluid, moving from one project, one pool to the next.
And then
We appreciate that for the community very much.
Yeah.
and then down the road, we can figure out what to do with that property, right? The older pool, the Frida Zamba pool, because we'll have this great facility there. So a lot of options, but I'm in favor of allowing the team to continue the conversation with Chris and his team to go forward, see where we end up.
Awesome. Councilman Sullivan?
Right, I agree, continue on down this line. The current pools that we have, the 2 pools, are not sustainable into the future because the cost to keep them going gets bigger and bigger, and then they basically can't. They're not a modern facility. So yes, from what I've seen, this is the first time I've seen the presentation. So, but I've heard about it, and if we can pull this off, it'd be great. But it always comes down to money, and you have to come up. And I do agree that we do have to. You do want to keep the government involved. In other words, I guess a total private company come in and build a similar thing, but that's unlikely to happen. And we want to keep involved, just like with the golf course. We want to make sure we have a facility for the people to use.
Certainly.
Okay. I don't have anything more at this point.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a couple questions. The first one is, have you gone to the county? Because my understanding is that your ask from the school board is also 3 million. Ask from us is 3 million. Have we gone to the county to see if they're willing to throw in anything?
Not yet. I have to defer to John Walsh because he's my conduit up here to this area. We've had conversations, yes, but we have not had a formal ask. But John, I don't know if you can share insight to that.
We have a call into the county to set up a meeting for the same conversation as to needing their help to serve the community.
Okay, thank you.
So, school board, county, big employers throughout, so far positive.
So what would be ideal is if we could get them in to split this 6 million with us and the school board. So if it were 2-2-2, that would be obviously a lot better for our budget and for the school board's budget. The county obviously enjoys a lot of our parks and recreational amenities now. So I just really encourage that conversation to take place.
I just want to reemphasize that for the investment of $3 million, the community is served with an aquatic center from the city. If the city were to invest in an aquatic center on its own, the estimated cost would be a great deal more.
John,
So-
I am not arguing ROI with you. That you are absolutely 100% correct.
And that same holds true with the schools.
Sure.
And with the county. So it's our intent to hit and have dialogue and contribution from each of those.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I should have prefaced by, I grew up in the YMCA. My dad has been on the Clearwater board YMCA's for years. I mean, literally grew up in those pools. I was actually, I learned diving from the
Summer camp.
YMCA, yeah, all those things. So, I mean, big fan, want to see it here. We need to see it here. Obviously, our job, though, are to be stewards of the taxpayer dollars. So in that effort, I just am, and listen, I really wish, no offense, Councilman Stevens, we're here to see this happening because he was a big advocate for keeping the pool open and going and healthy for a lot of our community, the kids, and some of our elderly community as well. So I hope he's watching at least, and we'll be able to see eventually this why come here. I just want to make sure that all of the stakeholders that have the ability to contribute because they will benefit are in fact a part of the conversation.
With approval from the city, approval from the school board, our conversation changes from coming soon to coming, right? We don't have to raise all of the money now. We have the financial ability to mortgage. Chris doesn't want to hear it, puts more pressure on him as the operator, but the board is fully behind this project here in Palm Coast.
Perfect, thank you. My other question is the 16 million, what is that breakdown? And I don't need for penny, but high level.
Well, we took the square footage and then we divided it by a certain number, like 325, and some of it has the land in it. So that's what I said, the 16 million is it's not written in stone. It could, my goal is coming a lot less than that, do some value engineering and see if we can get it down to under 275 a square foot construction-wise. And again, we're going to do a lot of large span construction. So almost like you're building a warehouse and then we're going to put the walls inside of it. So we're hoping by going that manner, we can bring that cost down per square foot. But we're right now, we're doing a renovation in Ormond at the locker rooms. And the renovation of the locker rooms were $352 a square foot. So it all depends. Locker rooms are by far the most expensive part of the building that you're going to have per square foot. You know, your fitness center and your basketball gyms, one of the least expensive due to square footage. But anyways, that's how we came about it. We just took what we're seeing and we multiplied it per, and then we added the cost of the land to it also, I believe, to get to the 16 million.
And the cost itself, so if you get the commitment from school board, you get the commitment from city, if the cost for some reason goes up, our commitment won't change, will it? Okay. And then timeline-wise, what will we be looking at, do you think?
That's a great question. We figured the fundraising phase for us is about an 18-month phase. Hopefully we can kind of speed that up, but that's what we're looking at, and we want to raise about $3 million. We have $2 million already in the bank. Depending on what we get from the county and the school board and everyone else, I don't know, hopefully we have a dirt in the shovel again. It's fluid. Maybe in 2 years, maybe sooner. It all depends on some pieces have to fall into place to make it happen.
Okay, and then the most important question, What are we calling this YMCA?
Well, if you give me $5 million, I'll call it anything you want. All right?
I was just curious as to, and I'll give the mic back to you in just a moment, Councilman. I was just curious if you all have talked about that as a board, what the name of the.
We have not. I have mentioned that to an area health provider, that if you give me $5 million, I'll call it, but.
That's my silent shout out to some of our larger, healthcare providers in the.
That's when you hire the fundraising consultant, that's one of the stages, is you put dollar values on naming opportunities.
Yeah.
So the naming of this could, and again, we've talked about it internally a little bit, we just haven't decided on the name. We don't know. Right now, I'm just generally calling it Palm Coast, but it could change.
Okay. Councilman?
Yeah, just the location and the land for this, and my understanding is the land is already available, but I don't know that, so could you just go over that part of it? Where
Yes,
it's gonna
the
be and
land.
how has that been, finally decided, and what about the land itself? Where it would
Yeah,
be?
the land has been finally decided, the location of it, as opposed to, I don't know if someone wants to talk about that, John, or the land itself, how that came about. It's being, I guess, I don't say donated for the project, but I want you to use the right acronym.
Yeah. Well, I'm Jeff Douglas, Douglas Property and Development, representative of Elite, and several other entities here. So just thank you for having us. Number one, this has been a long time coming, years, 6 years. So anyway, so the history of the land is part of the Palm Coast Park original DRI, in addition to building the roads and sewer capacity and all that, they donated this area here, this land, developed this land. The land was the cheapest part, the development's the most expensive part, and that whole parcel was part of that, was gifted to the city. So there's the stage there now, which PCAP was a part of and has, or the city still has the stage, and so this is gonna be to the east of that. We're working with Florida Power and Light to have overflow parking in there. So, on big events, so it's still, it's separate and to the east of the current, I don't know what we call it Performing Arts, Lauren? What do we call that site?
The stage.
The stage, yes. So, and Elite still owns, via Florida Community, still owns all the property to the west, which isn't very much, it's like 7-acre tract. So that's the history of it.
Across from the theater, right?
That's across from the theater, correct. Actually, we're closing today on a pretty cool little golf course. So,
good.
First to know.
And Jeff, just to confirm, this is Town Center DRI.
This is the Town Center DRI, correct. So with the Town Center DRI is vested, has a whole set of entitlements to it. And so this will come in under institutional, so it will fit within all the guidelines and permitting and prepays, if you will, that were done decade ago.
Is the 16 million include the land, or is it assuming that the land is part of the deal?
It includes the land. I think we did an appraisal on the land. I think I paid for it. I can't remember the number. I mean, it was like $1.8 million, $2 million. It was originally gifted by Elite to the city.
Okay.
So, but I'd have to jump into that. Don't hold me to that, and I'll provide it. I'll provide to you, Lauren.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just had one more because we brought up the stage. I know there's kind of been some ongoing conversations with staff and some other entities that would like to utilize the stage. And so I just wanted to make sure that, and obviously part of that is kind of answered by the overflow parking that's in between the proposed YMCA and the stage. But just make sure that we're committed to working with them to kind of make this holistic atmosphere of recreational facilities. I think it benefits both parties, right? But it would be, I just want to make sure that it gives us the opportunity to work with those other parties too in regards to the stage to create this great atmosphere in Town Center and provide amenities for our residents.
Yes, Councilmember Miller, we are actively working with the YMCA to make sure that energy is synergized at that facility, that we're still utilizing the stage for cultural art purposes, performing arts, and then also some community programming. We're working with Mr. Douglas to possibly put in a permanent food truck area, to move Food Truck Tuesdays down there. So it really brings some energy to that area.
And we'd be building additional parking that would be shared with that stage for the events also, so it'd be dual use. And we feel that our activities, again, the YMCA does have arts and performance under their umbrella. Having the stage next door, it dovetails very nicely to what we do.
Agreed. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much. We are going to go out to public comment, but thank you to the board members for being here. Really appreciate your presence and your efforts in this regard. So with that, public comment.
Thank you so much. My name is Jamie Gilbert. I'm a synchronized swimming coach, so I'm really excited to hear that. My daughter was the captain this year of the FPC swim team. She's a synchronized swimming girl with the local Flagler County Synchro Bell. And I have my own club, synchronized swimming club, so we practice at the DeLand YMCA because they have a deep end. So I'm just here to say thank you for even considering the YMCA. We're all extremely excited. I've been coming to most of the workshops and meetings for the last few years when there was a talk about the pools. And I just want to insist on the deep end because as synchronized swimming girls, we need a deep end. So my girl goes to Oviedo, like he said, every Saturday. She's been doing that since 5 years. And then in DeLand, my club, we can only swim the lifts and the big things in their deep end when they're open in April. So for 6 months of the years, we cannot practice. We also have to drive all the way to Oviedo or Orlando. So that's all I want to say, that thank you for even thinking about the YMCA in a big pool, and think of a deep end, please. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, sir.
Wilfredo Lleras, Palm Coast, 26 years. Thank God, today's my day, okay? A kid from the South Bronx, okay? Okay? Here, I joined the YMCA in Ormond Beach a couple of months ago, but I've always been swimming. I needed a pacemaker. I needed a defibrillator. Nothing. I'll give you 25 push-ups right now. I'm 85 years old. Hello? Hello? We've been fighting this for 9 years. Thank you, God. Thank you, people. Thank you. Again, a dumb Puerto Rican from the Bronx, okay? Thank you. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I'm also very excited. My name is Regine Bernier, resident of Palm Coast. I'm also excited for these gentlemen to help us to fulfill the dream and for you to make it happening to the city of Palm Coast. I would like also to know if we can participate with the workshop with you so we can be informed properly so the word can be passed, and to encourage those who really want to swim and stay healthy. I'm 80 years old and I do swim, and this is my life. So thank you very much, and thank you too.
Thank you for your comment, ma'am. Yes, sir, Mr. Webb.
More appropriate time, thank you. Mark Webb, Palm Coast. I'm an avid user of the swimming facilities we have. But one of the things that I've noticed is we lose approximately 25% of our time on an outdoor pool environment. In the summer months, it is so warm, we have to put in cooler systems to cool the water. In the winter time, it's so cold, we have to add a heater, but sadly, we've had to close the pool because of the cost of the heater. And so I would highly recommend an evaluation to determine that we have this new pool be undercover. The law requires a pool closed if there's lightning within 25 miles of the pool. because we all know lightning can travel. That's a safety requirement. If we go and move forward, and I am for the why, like Teresa, I am a product of the YMCA. I learned to swim there, ended up driving me into the Navy. It's important and it's needed, and I support it. The pool needs to be covered. The number one attraction that, if I understand our conversation, the flow is they're going to maintain the aquatic center for the next 3 years, and then when their pool gets up and going, the aquatic center will have we don't know what will happen there. And you're going to shift those people. I will tell you right now, the aquatic center during the summer months is packed. Camp, 50, 60 students at a time, school buses dropping off, swim lap in the morning early. You have your fire department doing training there. You have a plethora of things happening with that one pool. This pool, when it's completed, will already be too small. So the concept or the idea of investing and understanding this secondary pool for use in the summer months to augment and help with the future needs is an exciting and something we should look at. The pool needs to be covered. We need to do an analysis to make sure that we have 100% use of the pool daily, winter, summer, weather, all of the above, to add to and provide, as we've heard from our gentleman, it's a health benefit for many of us, including myself. So I just wanted to put that out there as a thought of analysis. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment? Mr. Walsh?
John Walsh, Palm Coast. Again, we're talking about short-term YMCA, building an aquatic center right away, but the strategic plan of our board is a second Palm Coast YMCA facility. As the city expands west, we too have desires to expand west with a second Y.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other public comment? I'll bring it back to the dais. I do have a question for our board. I know, and I was thinking about this before even the public comment, we have obviously a lot of different uses for the pool. Is it customary for you guys to have a community engagement, whether that's a neighborhood meeting or another workshop, so that we can make sure we're reaching out, doing that public outreach in a public setting, so that we can make sure we address all these different concerns and needs?
Definitely, yeah, because we want to make sure we provide facilities that the community needs. So having those public workshops is definitely something that we would encourage and actually want to have, because I wanted to build a building around programs and needs, not build it and then hope I met what the community needs were. So, yes.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that. And so we'll just make sure we stay on top of that, staff, for timing purposes.
Noted, understood.
Thank you. All right, I'll bring it back to the dais. Any other comments, questions?
No, that was mine.
Did you want to consider, James had a presentation specifically related
Oh,
to
yes, you did.
the aquatic center?
Please.
And as he's pulling that up, as we're navigating the next steps for management and operations at the Palm Coast Aquatic Center under the Y, so you want us to work with the YMCA on some of those details and then bring them back to you as we're working through the budget process?
I think that's wise,
Yes.
Council.
Okay,
Yeah.
understood.
Well, good morning, Vice Mayor and City Council. So this presentation is just an overview of everything that we currently do at the Palm Coast Aquatic Center. So a little bit of history. Palm Coast Aquatic Center is the home of the Free December swimming pool. Free December was named after the local surfing legend who won a world championship 4 times. It is a 25-meter, 8-lane pool that is staffed by lifeguards and certified swim instructors. Our lifeguards are Red Cross certified, and then also our pool is heated as well. And then we offer a bunch of programs. We have fitness programs, special events, swim lessons, rentals, and much more. So we've heard a little bit about the hours of our current operations. So this is what we can we provide to the public. So we're open from February 3rd to November 7th. And as you can see, as the weather gets warmer, we open a little bit more each time. And then once we hit Memorial Weekend, we're open full-time 7 days a week. And then we kind of, as we look back and we get colder, we bring back our hours a little bit. And we usually, our staff does take quite a bit of attendance, so they take daily attendance, and then they also take hourly attendance. So when we came up with these hours, we looked at when the pool was used most of the time.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask that question, because right now it stays light out until 8:30. So I was wondering why we're closing at 6 if we're still getting a lot of traffic at that time. I don't know if we are. So when it gets a little bit later, what are we looking at as far as?
Yeah, we used to be open till 7:30 p.m. But as we took our statistics and we made some adjustments, a lot of this also happens to coincide with the amount of lifeguards that we can have, that we have and have employed. I'm sure Chris could let us know, but lifeguards, there's a bit of a shortage. No one really wants to, I guess, lifeguard as much anymore as at least pool lifeguard. So we kind of challenge between having lifeguards and then also looking at the number of people that use the pool. Sometimes if we have a program that, is a cost recovery program, we may have one of our, so let's say, for example, Master Swim, we used to kind of stay a little bit open later for that program, which then we allowed members of the public to come and use the pool while we did coincide with that program. So.
Okay, so in other words, when 6 o'clock rolls around, we're not kicking 40 people out of the pool, right? I mean, is that happening?
Yeah, at the moment, yes, it is, yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay, well, are we working with the colleges at all, or do we know if there's programs? I know there's programs to train lifeguards, but have we explored?
We try a number of different, we've reached out to colleges, we've reached out, a lot of our lifeguards are high school kids, so we reach out to the high schools, we kind of tap into the swim teams a little bit. We kind of train them for free to try and at least get them in there and trying to be lifeguards.
Do they no longer have the adult ed program through Flagler Schools?
Don't think
I know
they
it was
do,
at
yeah.
Swim and Racket, and I know Swim and Racket is still used for internal stuff, but they don't do that anymore.
So lifeguard recruitment and retention has been a struggle for years, and not just at our facility, but also at Belterra Swim and Racket. And so we've partnered not only with the school district, but also Flagler Beach, and whenever guards are, maybe they didn't make it through their session and there's extra people looking for jobs, we've done simultaneous lifeguard instructive classes. So it's just a shortage, I would say, countywide.
Is that just, I don't know, it's a cultural thing? I think that was like a rite of passage.
I think
in
it
Flagler
goes in
County,
waves. People want to be lifeguards.
Everybody became a lifeguard. Sometimes, a lot of times you couldn't find a job, but everybody tried.
Yeah.
And the ultimate goal was Flagler Beach, right? You wanted to be out on the beach.
That
and
is-
you'd
that
be
is
able to
true.
run around in the waves. But, I remember there was more lifeguards than jobs at that time.
Yeah, and we're trying to tap into the retired community a little bit too, those who like to swim or can swim. We try and tap into them, do some training with them, see if they want to come on board with us and kind of help us lifeguard so we can hopefully expand our hours, yeah. And then during the holidays, again, we're open most holidays. We're open from 10 to 4, Memorial Day, President's Day, we're open from 10 to 2, and then Juneteenth. And then July 4th, we're also open as well. And then Labor Day is our last day. Not last day, but our last holiday. We do offer a number of pass holder options. So we have a quarterly pass, which is a 3-month pass for individuals. We have monthly passes for both senior and individuals. We have a family pass just for the summertime. And then our daily admission, we're pretty cheap at $4 for adults, $3 for youth, $3 for seniors, and any kids under 2 can come in for free.
Just a question about that. I know we had some feedback from, I believe it was Ms. Gibson, about passes and different options. I don't know what the timeline looks like with the YMCA and potential management, so I don't know if it makes sense to try to change anything, but I don't know if we took any of that feedback and researched it at all.
I don't think I'm familiar with Ms.
I think
Gibson's
I'm not sure.
email. Yeah.
Right, we've done, the last rate adjustment that we did for Parks and Recreation, we evaluated all of the facilities and we surveyed each individual facility's user group, and then we tried to accommodate the passes on a financial model, but also on a usage model. So we eliminated some of the passes that weren't used as frequently, and then tried to maximize our benefit on a cost recovery model for getting more revenue into the facility. So that's why the evaluation was done probably in 21 or 22.
21, yes, 2021.
That's probably around the same time the cost feasibility of refurbishment was done as well.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then we'll quickly talk about our awesome staff over there at the pool. So we do have an aquatic supervisor who's in charge of the day-to-day and facility operations. We have an aquatic specialist who's kind of the backup, the number two, who does most of the training, lifeguard training, but is also, running a pool. You're running a pool 8 days a week pretty much. So we try to get some backup for our supervisor, so that's why we have the specialist. Then we have our seasonal head guards and lead guards. We have our facility guest attendants, and then we try to project around about 10 seasonal lifeguards throughout the year with the help of our supervisor, who also gets up onto the stand, and our head guard and lead guard and specialist that also lifeguard the pool as well.
So City Council, as we talk about different operational models, just wanted to bring your attention that these are our employees that are currently working there, and when you move operations to another source of management, it is affecting their livelihoods as well. So just wanted to put that in consideration. And oftentimes they listen to these meetings. So just wanted to have you for food for thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any thought process to, obviously it's everybody's personal choice, right? If you want to work in an aquatics facility, you want to work in an aquatics facility, but any thought process of transitioning to other roles?
We've had some discussions with the YMCA to
I would just want
to take on our staff.
Yeah, so potentially they could either be staffed there or move somewhere else within our recreation department if there's a need that's arising, additional resources at some point, just to make that transition easier for them.
Yeah, they do a great job over there. And then just some of our activities. We do swim lessons. They are part of our summer camp scholarship allotment. So we have, I think, about 1,000 or 1,500 available for swim lesson scholarships. We do private, semi-private, and then we do group lessons. All swim lessons are done through the American Red Cross. It's a little bit different from the YMCA, but not too much difference, just another provider. And that our swim lesson instructors are certified through the American Red Cross. We do aqua Zumba classes, we do water aerobics classes, we have open lane swimming, we do master swim, we do have a youth swim team, and we kind of use it more of a development team to get them ready for high school or maybe more competitive swimming. We do an egg splash event, which should be coming up, and then we have a Halloween event, annual pool safety day, which is Memorial Weekend, and then we also participate in the world's largest swim lesson, which was, as of last year, was the 15th year I think we've done that. So it's pretty cool. And then, as I said, we do swim lessons. So in 23-24, we had 400 swim lessons, and that's really on an average of about 3 or 4 certified instructors that do that amount of lessons. So they are pretty busy with swim lessons, as we understand the importance of them. And we are participating in the voucher program through the Florida Health Department to provide free swim lessons for the community, and we applied and we got allowed 32 people this year, 32 swimmers. So we're working on that. It hasn't started yet, but we're starting it really soon. In 23-24, we just had under 30,000 people come to the pool, and then we also have some pass holders and we had 303 pass holders, and then we have our pickleball and tennis pass holders. They have access to come to the community center, the aquatic center as well. And that's just through their membership over there at the SRC. Continuing on to our community impact, our city summer camp goes to our pool 2 times a week for the whole 9 weeks. It's one of their favorite days to get out, go to the pool. It's a bit of headache and a bit of it's a rush for our lifeguards, but our summer camp does get there 2 times a week. The Imagine School Summer Camp utilizes our pool as well. We do a bunch of pool parties. AARP Tax Aid does use our classroom for their services. We just got a letter from their president just thanking the city and us accommodating them to use that classroom. We are the home pool for Matanzas High School. We host Special Olympics swim team. The Flagler County Fire Department does some training with their marine rescue. They train at our pool as well. The Buddy Taylor Sea Perch is a unique kind of program, but it's really cool. Each year they get to compete in the state, I believe it's state championships of kind of underwater robotics. And so they build these robotic watercrafts, and they have an obstacle course, and they try and navigate through the obstacle course, and it's timed. So the fastest time wins, and they utilize our pool for some practice on that too. So it's a really cool program to see. We do the Flagler schools. Wadsworth mainly uses our pool for the end of year parties. They just come on, walk over, and they utilize our pool. And then STEM, we've worked with STEM over at Wadsworth as well, where we've done some lifeguard training with them, trying to get them ready. If they do want to be lifeguards, we're kind of already teaching them how to be lifeguards. So those are some of the community impacts that we do, and with that, that ends my presentation. So,
Okay. Thank you, James.
no worries.
Council members, questions, comments?
All the more reasons why we need to continue its operations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just have one question on the pass holder slide. You said, excuse me, that pickleball and tennis pass holders have access to the aquatic center for free. Is it vice versa? Do we have?
Currently, no. This was something that was in place about 10 or so years ago, but something we can always look into as well.
Yeah, I would look into whether or not we keep that trend going. And the only reason I say that is I find it to be a little unfair that it's, you know, if we want to say, well, aquatic center pass holders can also have access to pickleball and tennis at the Southern Rec Center, okay. But why we're only giving especially if we know the aquatic center is very busy, then, you know, I think we just maybe need to look at that. That's just my suggestion. I don't know how you all feel about, I don't want to direct by myself here. I don't know how you all feel about that. Just looking into it as.
I'd look into it.
Yeah.
It
No.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Sometimes things are grandfathered in.
Sure, and you don't realize it. Yeah.
Nobody ever looks at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in not knowing what the intent of that was, whether it was to grow the pickleball program by throwing in an amenity, and vice versa. If right now our biggest struggle is to provide enough revenue to pay for the expenses of the location.
Right.
Potentially having it reciprocal like that would grow some revenue on the aquatic side as well.
Right.
So
I might be able to help with some of the history here.
Okay.
So way back when, like 2007, 2008, even in the Kemper Sports days, Kemper Sports worked with the city to provide a membership kind of golf, tennis, and pool, because many of the members at that time were used to the old Players Club on Palm Coast Parkway, Palm Harbor Parkway, that had a pool directly on site as sort of that whole amenity complex, and then Palm Harbor right down the road. So as the Players Club closed and the city created the Palm Coast Tennis Center, it was an effort to kind of maintain that service level.
I understand.
So way, way, way back when.
Yes, that is way back. Okay. I would encourage, to Councilman Miller's point, you know, we're having some obvious revenue issues with the aquatic center. I would propose that as of January 1st, tennis and pickleball, you all need to pay for a separate pass if, whether it's a day pass, whatever it may be, to aquatics. I don't know. I don't think that would be a violation of any type of contract. Obviously.
Oh, and we'll check the usage, because they're all tied to pass holder numbers, so we can see who's actually coming from tennis and pickleball to use the pool.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, thank you so much for the presentations. Really appreciate it. And do we want to do, 20 minutes, council? Is that enough? So come back at, 1:15?
Okay.
All right. We'll go on a break then.
There's no lunch.
Okay.
Sorry. Kendra's going to bring in some snacks, but I did not order lunch, unless you want.